are what? Permanent views of an individual. Beliefs are what? Permanent views of an individual, and they remain like they would be firm about their belief. Okay, they would be firm about the belief. They would not change. Opinions change हो सकते हैं, but beliefs would not change easily. Then habits are what? Habits are accustomed way of doing things. What are habits? Accustomed way of doing things. That means the person is actually having a habit of drawing. So that is the accustomed way of doing things is actually known as a habit. Okay? So the person is having a habit of sleeping at midnight or sleeping at 3 o'clock. So that is his habit. It is the accustomed way of doing things of a particular individual. Okay. Emotions are what? Emotions are strong feelings. Emotions are nothing but strong feelings. And the most common emotion, this was a question in August. The most common emotion is, so according to psychiatry, it is love. According to psychiatry, it is love. And according to PSM, it is fear. According to PSM, it is fear. ठीक है, मेरे हिसाब से तो fear. ठीक है, love थोड़े दिन का मेहमान होता है, फिर क्या आता है? डर. ठीक है, so जल्दी से patterns of behavior are mixing of culture is known as mixing of cultures is known as usual way of doing things is temporary views of a person are permanent views of a person are accustomed way of doing things is strong feelings are and the most common emotion paper 1 में fear, paper 2 में love. ये देखो फंडा सीधा साधा मेरे हिसाब से. अब हर एक अपने इससे हट नहीं रहा. साइकियाट्रिस्ट से इट इज लव एंड लाइक पीएसएम वाले से इट इज फियर. सो मेरे हिसाब से ऐसे मांग करो, पेपर 1 में आता है पीएसएम का क्वेश्चन फियर, पेपर 2 में आता है साइकियाट्री का क्वेश्चन लव. ठीक है, तो ऐसा ये फंडा इजी रहेगा. नाउ द अर्बन सोशियो इकोनॉमिक स्केल व्हिच इज द अर्बन सोशियो इकोनॉमिक स्टेटस स्केल व्हिच इज यूज्ड इज नोन एज द modified Kuppuswamy scale. Modified Kuppuswamy scale. So the urban socio-economic status scale used is the urban socio-economic status scale used is the urban socio-economic status scale used is this was a question. ठीक है, modified Kuppuswamy scale. The other urban scales would be Kulshrestha scale, Srivastava scale, multiple, and our rural scales would be BG Hariprasad scales. Okay, all of that. No issues with that. So modified Kuppuswamy scale. Important thing they ask you in modified Kuppuswamy scale, 3 parameters are assessed. First is income, second is education, and third is occupation. First is income, second is education, and third is occupation. Income of the whole family. Income of the whole. But education and occupation of the head of family. Education and occupation of this was asked. ठीक है, so please remember in modified Kuppuswamy scale it is an urban scale for socio-economic status. Income of but occupation and education of now starting with international health. ठीक है, so if I talk about the first logo, this is the logo for WHO, World Health Organization. World Health Organization came into existence after First World War, that is Second World War, 1945, and the Constitution of WHO came into effect on 7th April 1948. Constitution came into effect on 7th April 1948, and therefore 7th April is celebrated as World Health Day. 7th April is celebrated as World Health Day. No issues with this. So here it is a similar symbol to UN. Okay, a world with this leaves around it, but it also has a Asclepius. It also has a rod of Asclepius. So that is what is WHO, which signifies health. No issues with this. याद रखना. So WHO के headquarters are located in Geneva, Switzerland. Next, here the logo is for this is the logo for United Nations. This is the logo for United Nations organization. ठीक है, किसी काम का नहीं. ठीक है, so United Nations. It was established in 1945, and the headquarters for United Nations are located in New York, USA. No issues with this. Next, if I talk about this logo, Here you can see a child and a mother. So this logo is for subunit of UN, that is UNICEF. UNICEF का full form United Nations International Children Emergency Fund. So if they ask you what does the C stand for, it stands for children. C stands for E stands for emergency. E stands for emergency. No issues with this. ये question हम पूछे गए. And the headquarters of UNICEF are located in New York, and they have launched a campaign known as Gobi Triple F campaign. They have launched which campaign? So UNICEF has launched which campaign? UNICEF has launched which campaign? Gobi Triple F campaign. So बहुत बड़ा है इसका. Growth monitoring, ORS, breastfeeding, immunization, female education, all of that is set. ठीक है? No issues with this. At least remember which campaign is launched by UNICEF? Gobi Triple F. Then this is the logo for the World Bank, जो उधार देता है. और सबसे ज्यादा उधार कौन देता है? साइड में यहाँ. Then this logo is for FAO, that is Food and Agricultural Organization. Here you can see there is a crop also, na? So it is Food and Agricultural Organization, and it is a subunit of United Nations itself. And the headquarters for FAO are located in Rome, Italy. Okay, the headquarters for Food and Agricultural Organization located in headquarters of FAO located in headquarters of ILO, International Labour Organization. Headquarters of International Labour Organization, Geneva. Headquarters of International Labour Organization, Geneva. And headquarters of International Red Cross, again Geneva. Headquarters of International Red Cross. And Red Cross का important याद रखना, it is only a Red Cross. White Cross was first aid. White Cross with red bindi was ठीक है, सुरक्षा clinic. No issues with this. This is International Red Cross. No issues with this. Anybody now? Shall I move further? चलते हैं आगे. या जल्दी से headquarters for WHO. Headquarters for WHO. Headquarters for WHO. Headquarters for International Labour Organization. Headquarters for International Labour Organization. Headquarters for International Red Cross. Headquarters for International Red Cross. Headquarters for FAO. Headquarters for FAO. Headquarters for UNICEF. Headquarters for UNICEF. Headquarters for UNO. Campaign launched by UNICEF. Campaign launched by FAO. Campaign launched by FAO. FFHC, Free from Hunger Campaign. Campaign launched by FAO is Free from Hunger Campaign. Easy hai? Obviously. Then coming to health and disease. Starting with the most important two health indicators, and that is PQLI and HDI. Better one is? Best one is? HDI. Better one is? क्यों आगे देखते हैं. The mnemonic to remember both of them is lie. The mnemonic to remember both of them is lie. L goes for literacy rate. Literacy rate is included in both of them. Literacy rate sometimes can be replaced with the other terms, that is knowledge or mean years of schooling or average years of schooling or enrollment ratio or education index. ये कोई भी आए, the answer would remain same. ठीक है? So it is one and the same thing. Don't get confused. ठीक है? Then I goes for, in PQLI I goes for infant mortality rate. In PQLI I goes for but in HDI I goes for and this is the reason why it is a better index. Income indicated है, so socio-economic health status बताता है पूरा. Then PQLI, the last one, E goes for in PQLI, whereas HDI the last E goes for expectancy. Which expectancy? Life expectancy. Which expectancy? Life expectancy. But in PQLI IMR is there, that is infant. So life expectancy would be calculated at life expectancy in PQL at life expectancy in PQL at life expectancy in HDI at life expectancy in HDI at birth. The range of PQL is 0 to the range of PQL is 0 to range of PQL is 0 to range of HDI is 0 to range of HDI is 0 to current current PQL value of India is current PQL value of India is current value of India in PQL is current HDI value of India is current HDI value of India is current value of HDI in India is 0.64 and the rank is around 130. Okay? No issues with this, anybody? Yaad rakhna. Then if I talk about one important fonda from international health, I have got space over here. Okay? So important things, two important things that you need to remember from international health, guys. First, which are the immediately notifiable diseases? Which are the immediately notifiable diseases? Immediately means these should be notified within a period of 24 hours. Okay? So immediately notifiable WSS, immediately notifiable diseases to the WHO are remembered by the mnemonic SIP. They are remembered by the mnemonic SIP. S goes for smallpox. S goes for smallpox. Second S goes for SARS. Second S goes for SARS. I goes for human influenza. I goes for human. I goes for human. And P goes for P goes for poliomyelitis. P goes for poliomyelitis. No issues with this. So immediately notifiable diseases to WHO within a period of 24 hours. The mnemonic is SIP. S for smallpox and second is SARS. I for and P for polio. Then if I talk about quarantine and isolation, में क्या difference है? So quarantine is done for contacts. Quarantine is done for contacts. Quarantine is done for contacts. But isolation is done for cases. Isolation is done for cases. Isolation is done for cases. Isolation is for how much time? Till the patient is non-infected. Isolation is for how much time? Till the patient is non-infected or he is recovered. But quarantine is for how much time? Maximum incubation period of that disease. Quarantine is for how much time? Maximum incubation period of that disease. 14 मत याद कर लो, बस 14 days is for COVID. बाकियों के incubation period अलग है. ठीक है? So according to this, please remember which are the quarantineable diseases? Quarantineable diseases by WHO. एक ही होता है हमें, right? Quarantineable diseases by WHO remembered by the mnemonic DIPS FVC. ठीक है? DIPS FVC. D for diphtheria. D for I for लगा ही था, एक ही नाम है तुम्हारे पास. I for infectious TB. I for infectious. I for P for P for S for smallpox. S for smallpox and second for F for flu. F for that is what is your influenza. ठीक है? V for viral hemorrhagic fever. V for viral hemorrhagic fever and C for cholera. C for so immediately notifiable diseases remembered by the mnemonic SIP. S for small. पक्का चाय पी के आया हूँ. S for smallpox and SARS and I for P for quarantineable diseases means maximum incubation period के लिए separated from the normal population. ठीक है? Mnemonic is DIPS FBC. D for I for infectious TB. P for S for smallpox and SARS and F for V for viral hemorrhagic fever and C for cholera. Then if I talk about control, what do we mean by control? That means decrease in the transmission of the disease. Decrease in the transmission of a disease. Okay. Till what extent? Till an extent where it stops becoming a public health problem. till an extent where it stops becoming a public health problem. No issues with this. So what do we mean by control? Only decrease in transmission. What do we mean by control? Decrease in transmission. What do we mean by control? Decrease in transmission. What do we mean by elimination? Complete absence of transmission. What do we mean by elimination? Complete absence of transmission. What do we mean by elimination? Complete absence of transmission. That means the organism is present. We still have polio, but we say that the transmission of polio has stopped in India, and therefore we say that polio has been eliminated. Though WHO नहीं मानता, हम अपने आप को बोलते हैं. Polio has been eliminated from India. Then eradication is what? Complete absence, extermination बहुत हो जाएगा, तो complete absence of organism. Complete absence of organism. That means organism is जिंदा नहीं है. ठीक है? So therefore transmission का तो कोई chance ही नहीं. तो जल्दी से decrease in transmission of disease is called as complete absence of transmission is called as complete absence of transmission is called as complete absence of organism is called as complete absence of organism is called as global term is worldwide, global term is country term is regional term is wow elimination. Country regional और country term है elimination. ठीक है? So a disease can be eliminated from India, whereas a disease can be eradicated from the world. ठीक है? ये difference है. If I talk about eradicated diseases, the only disease which has been eradicated from world is only disease eradicated is and it was eradicated on 8th May 1980. 8th May 1980. It was eradicated on 8th May 1980. यार समझ लो 8th May 1980. Whereas one more strain of polio has been eradicated from world. Which strain of polio? P2. That is a wild strain of polio. Which strain of polio? Which strain of polio? And this wild strain of polio is P2. Wild strain of polio is P, and therefore it has been removed from the polio vaccine, and therefore the program is known as the. Then eliminated diseases from India. First eliminated was guinea worm. First eliminated was, and guinea worm is also known as Dragon curiosus. Guinea worm is also known as in 2000 it was eliminated. Then the next eliminated was leprosy. ठीक है? And leprosy was eradicated in December 2005. Sorry. ठीक है? Then eliminated was yours. And the last to be eliminated was neonatal tetanus or maternal tetanus. No issues with this, anybody? Now, for leprosy and maternal tetanus, it is not a case that we are not finding any new cases of leprosy or tetanus. There we are finding some new cases of leprosy and tetanus, but we have achieved the elimination criteria of WHO. And what is the WHO criteria of for leprosy? Less than one case per 10,000 population. Less than one case per. Currently we have 0.64. And for neonatal tetanus, less than 1 case per. Less than 1.1 case per 1,000 live births. Less than 0.1 case per. So we have achieved both these targets. ठीक है? So ये question पूछा गया था leprosy पे. ठीक है? So what is the elimination criteria for leprosy? Less than 1 case per 10,000 population. What is the elimination criteria for neonatal tetanus? Less than 0.1 case per 1,000 live births. Now, WHO has given us free status for 2 diseases, and it has given us free status on 27 March 2014 for polio. It has given us the free status for polio, and also in 2017 it gave us free status for trachoma. It also gave us the free status for trachoma. ठीक है? No issues with this. Dates याद रखने की तुम्हें जरूरत नहीं है. जल्दी से बताओ. Eradicated disease is smallpox. And which strain of polio? P2. Then eliminated disease. First is also known as also known as second is third is and fourth is neonatal or maternal or three status for first is second is trachoma and polio and okay, no issues with this. Moving further, now here you can see various graphs. Jaldi se identify karenge now. Okay, the number of cases of a disease can vary over a period of time. They can either increase or they can decrease. Okay, and therefore these are known as fluctuations. Right, there would be fluctuations in the number of cases of a disease. These fluctuations can be seen over seasons. That means in rainy season they increase and in winter season they decrease. So this is called as seasonal fluctuations or seasonal trend of a disease. Okay? These number of cases can increase or decrease over a period of few years. That means every 3 to 5 years measles cases rise. Every 6 to 8 years rubella cases rise. So this is known as the cyclical trend of a disease. This is known as a cyclical trend of a disease. Then if I talk about long-term fluctuation, that means the number of cases of a disease increase every 10 years. Number of cases of a disease increase every decade or every 10 years. This is a long-term fluctuation and this is known as a secular trend of a disease. Long-term fluctuation is secular trend of a disease. Okay? Important. Sorry. So here, if I talk about this first one, here you can see the number of cases of a disease were high in Jan and they were high in Jan and February. Okay, then they decreased. Then they again they were again raised in Jan and February the next year. So this is showing which type of variation. So this is a seasonal trend. This is a seasonal trend of a disease. So it is a short-term fluctuation. It is a short-term fluctuation. So if the number of cases vary over a season, it is known as seasonal trend. If the number of cases of a disease, here you can see in 2012 and 2013 the number of cases were high. Then again for 2 years the number of cases were low, and again in 2016 they rise, and again in 2018. So here it is showing increase in the number of cases every few years. If it is showing increase in the number of cases every few years, it is known as the cyclical trend. It is known as the cyclical trend. Important. Okay? It is known as the cyclical trend. Again an example of short-term fluctuation. Okay? Measles show variation. Measles show periodic fluctuations over a period of 2 to 3 years. Rubella cases rise over a period of 6 to 8 years. And maximum variations in the number of cases are shown by influenza. Maximum variations in the number of cases are shown by influenza. So maximum trend would be shown by influenza. Maximum trend would be shown by okay? And influenza usually it is after every 1 to 2 years there can be an epidemic of influenza. Rise in the number of cases of influenza. It is due to antigenic variations. Okay, then here you can see that the number of cases were high in 1820, then in 1840, then in 1860. So the number of cases are rising over a decade or over 10 years time. Then this is a long-term fluctuation, which is known as a secular trend. It is known as a secular trend. So here you can say why it is shown by a graph. So I can even represent it like this. Okay? And what is this? So this is it is a line diagram. So secular trend is represented by a no issues with this, anybody? Now if I say that Japanese encephalitis is constantly present in the state of Bihar and Uttar Pradesh or West Bengal, then that disease would be endemic to that particular area. What do we mean by endemic? Constant presence of a disease. What do we mean by endemic? Constant presence of a disease in a given geographical area. What is known by endemic? Constant presence of a disease in a given geographical area. That means polio is present in Pakistan, or Japanese encephalitis is present in Bihar. Kala Azar is present in Bihar. Okay, these are the examples of endemic diseases which are constantly present in a given geographical area. But if the number of cases of these diseases rise suddenly, then that would be called as an epidemic. Then that is called as an epidemic. If the number of cases rise suddenly, it is called as an epidemic. So how do we define epidemic? Kuch to hona chahiye uske liye. So please remember, epidemic would be if the number of cases of a disease are more than mean plus 2 standard deviation. How do we define epidemic? If the number of cases are more than mean plus 2 standard deviation. How do we define epidemic? number of cases are more than mean plus 2 standard deviation. Jaldi se. Dengue is usually endemic to Delhi. It is constantly present in Delhi. ठीक है, example. But in 2018 it was 5,000 cases. 2020 it was almost 4,000 cases. ठीक है. So here the mean value was 4,500. ठीक है. And the standard deviation they gave, that means the standard deviation was 1,000 over here. ठीक है. The standard deviation was 1,000. So when we will call that Delhi is suffering from epidemic of dengue, when it would be more than mean plus 2 standard deviation. Mean is how much here over here? 4,500 plus 2 standard deviation means 2 into 1,000 is 2,000. That means 6,500. So if the number of cases is more than 6,500, then we will say that Delhi is suffering from epidemic of dengue. No issues with this. So याद रखना ये numericals का question आ सकता है. No issues with this. Epidemic is said when the number of cases are more than mean plus 2 standard deviation. ठीक है. And one more important question which was a recall. What is the first step in an epidemic? What is the first step in an epidemic? Confirmation or verification? It is verification of what? Verification of diagnosis. Verification of diagnosis. So this was a question, straight one liner. What is the first step in epidemic? What is the first step in epidemic? What is the first step in epidemic? So health officer हो तुम्हें कोई आके बोलता है कि एपिडेमिक हुआ है डेंगू का, तुम मान तो नहीं लोगे डायरेक्टली. You will check by yourself, ना? You will verify the diagnosis whether dengue is present or not in the community. That is what is done. ठीक है. Next, if I say if there is a country to country spread, it is called as country to country spread is called as country to country spread is called as pandemic. ठीक है, pandemic. ठीक है. No issues with this anybody? Then if a disease is scattered throughout India, then it is called as sporadic. Scattering of cases of a disease is known as scattering of cases of a disease is known as scattering of cases of a disease is known as sporadic. ठीक है. It has not a single cause. It is not genetic. It is not only related to something. It can be anything, and therefore the disease cases are distributed throughout the area, and therefore those are sporadic. Whereas a new disease coming to a country for the first time, it is termed as new disease coming to a country for the first time. It is known as exotic. New disease coming to a country for the first time. It is known as new disease coming to a country for the first time is known as exotic. No issues with this anybody? Now moving further, talking about this. Now talking about different types of epidemics. ठीक है. So if there was a party, ठीक है, किसी ने free भंडारा बांटा था, ठीक है, there was a free food which was given. तुम सबके सब वहां भागे, ठीक है, एंड सबने खाना खाया और पता चला भंडारे के खाने में कुछ मिला हुआ था. ठीक है. सो व्हाट विल हैपन? ऑल ऑफ यू विल हैव डायरिया. ठीक है. मैं चाहता नहीं हूं बट फॉर एग्जांपल. ठीक है. सो ऑल ऑफ यू विल हैव डायरिया. सो द नंबर ऑफ केसेस विल राइज instantly. That means there would be a sudden rise. There would be a sudden rise. The number of cases will fall suddenly. Therefore there would be a sudden fall. There would be a sudden fall, and all the cases would be in a single incubation period. So all the cases would be clustered in a single incubation period. So सबको एक जगह का खाना खाने से हुआ. So it is a point source epidemic. ठीक है. So it is a point source epidemic. Single exposure, multiple exposure. So it is a single exposure point source epidemic. Which type of epidemic is this? Single exposure point source epidemic. No issues with this? No issues with this anybody? ठीक है. So what is the characteristic of single exposure point source epidemic? Sudden rise, sudden fall, and clustering of cases in one incubation period. Okay. Next, if I talk about this one, here you can see there is sudden rise in the number of cases. Okay, there would be a sudden rise in the number of cases, but now there would be peaks. Okay, there would be multiple peaks, and these multiple peaks are called as secondary waves. These multiple peaks are called as secondary waves, and then there would be a fall in the disease. Okay, so sudden rise, sudden fall with secondary waves. This is what? So here maybe a well was contaminated. A well was contaminated, and everybody was drinking the water of the same well in the village. So it was a point source, but Every day the people were exposed to it, so it is multiple exposure. So it is an example of multiple exposure point source epidemic. This is an example of multiple exposure point source epidemic. No issues with this. So what is the characteristic of this? Sudden rise and with multiple peaks, and these multiple peaks are known as secondary waves. Okay. Next, if I say there would be a slow rise in the number of cases, okay, slow rise in the number of cases, there is a slow fall in the number of cases, and there is a plateau in between. Then there is a plateau in between. This is known as which type of epidemic? This is known as a propagated epidemic. This is known as a propagated epidemic. And propagated epidemic is seen with which diseases? Diseases having person to person transmission. Diseases having person to person transmission, like tuberculosis, HIV, all of these. Okay. So please remember, these will spread over a longer period of time. ना HIV का एक इंसान 10 लोगों को एक साथ तो नहीं इन्फेक्ट कर सकता, right? So it is over a period of time. Over a period of time, so there would be slow rise in the number of cases, a plateau would be achieved, and then slow fall in the number of cases. This is known as which type of epidemic? Propagated epidemic. It is due to person to person transmission. So jaldi se batao, HIV is which type of epidemic? HIV is? Tuberculosis is? COVID is? एपिडेमिक पूछ रहा हूं, पैंडेमिक तो है ही वो. Person to person transmission. So COVID is also an example of propagated epidemic. ठीक है? No issues with this. Now, sorry. HIV from a commercial sex worker. It would be an example of. See, propagated तो हो नहीं सकता ये, ठीक है? So there would be sudden rise in the number of cases. इतना तो मानते हो? Okay? And every time there would be a new person who is infected. So multiple exposure. So HIV/AIDS in a commercial sex worker is an example of multiple exposure point source epidemic. Multiple exposure point source. No issues with this now. समझ गए? आगे. Levels of prevention. ये तो सबको आता है जल्दी से. First is primordial level of prevention. That means it appears before the. It has to be applied before the. It has to be applied before the risk factors. Primary is when risk factors are. But disease has not started. Disease has not started. Secondary is when the disease has started. The disease has started. It is already progressing or it has already been over. Whereas tertiary is when the disease is over. Tertiary is when the disease is over. ठीक है? So जल्दी से primordial में the method of primordial level of prevention would be health education. Health education or health promotion? Health education or health promotion? Health education or health promotion? Health promotion. ठीक है? Health education is usually primary. No issues with this. कोई दिक्कत है? कोई दिक्कत हो रही है? कोई दिक्कत हो रही है? ठीक है? And then specific protection. Then next one is specific protection. Secondary is diagnosis and treatment. Secondary is diagnosis and treatment. And tertiary is disability limitation. Tertiary is disability limitation and rehabilitation. No issues with this. Anybody now? कोई दिक्कत हो रही है अभी भी? So examples jaldi se. Vaccine is an example of. So all vaccines are an example of primary level of prevention. Which type? It is specific protection. Contraception is an example of. Which type? Specific protection. Which type? Specific protection. No issues with this. कोई दिक्कत हो रही है तो बताओ यार अभी. Then pap smear is an example of. Pap smear is an example of CB night is an example of. Just a minute. आ रहा हूँ उसी पे explain कर रहा हूँ, एक second explain कर रहा हूँ. Health education means and health promotion, उसका पहले फंडा समझाता हूँ तो जल्दी से. सबसे पहले what is the difference between health promotion and health education? So for example, if you are making the population aware of how to reduce sources, okay, of how to reduce sources of mosquito breeding, that is an. So how to reduce mosquito breeding, that is an example of primordial prevention. That is an example of primordial prevention, and that is done by health education. ठीक है, उस पे आता है. That is done by health education. No issues with this अभी. हाँ. Then if I talk about primary level of prevention, it is usually when केजरीवाल की गाड़ी आती है तुम्हारे घर पे and it tells you about methods of prevention from mosquitoes. That means mosquito nets use करो, mosquito repellents use करो, और maybe केजरीवाल की गाड़ी uses mosquito repellents. Then this is an example of primary level of prevention. But which protection? It is health promotion and specific protection. No issues with this. अभी ठीक है, कोई दिक्कत नहीं. क्या हो गया इसको? कोई दिक्कत आ रही है? हाँ, इसीलिए मैं करेक्ट किया. क्या ये भाई, ये कनेक्ट ही नहीं हो रहा. कोई ब्रेक इतने टाइम में तो मैं कतई ब्रेक नहीं दे रहा. ठीक है, नो इश्यूज विद दिस. अरे भाई चलो हो जा, एक तो टाइम कम है मेरे पास. क्या है यार? Just a minute guys, I'm reconnecting again. Patient, ठीक है. Active surveillance is carried out in India for which diseases? It is used for malaria. It is used for malaria. Who goes for collecting the blood samples for malaria? Multi-purpose worker. Multi-purpose worker. Then it is also done for polio. Okay, active surveillance is also done for polio. Who goes for collecting stool sample? SMO, surveillance medical officer. Who goes for collecting stool sample? Surveillance medical officer, and sends the stool sample in reverse cold chain. No issues with this. Next, we also have active surveillance for TB. We also have active surveillance for TB. And who are going for active surveillance for TB? ASHA worker. Who goes? ASHA worker. Then we also have TB supervisor. We also have TB supervisor. No issues with this. कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, तो एटलीस्ट ये तीन याद रखो. Then passive surveillance, when the patient goes to the hospital. When the patient goes to the hospital, and this is 90% of the cases are reported by passive surveillance. 90% of the cases are reported by. 90% of the cases are reported by. Sentinel surveillance is done for missing or hidden cases. Sentinel surveillance is done for missing or hidden cases. It is done for HIV. It is done for which disease? HIV. Sentinel surveillance for polio के लिए, टीबी के लिए, मलेरिया के लिए, बाकी सब के लिए. ठीक है, no issues with this anybody. Then if I talk about cases over here, what is the primary case? The first case of a disease is known as. Then all the cases which develop from primary case are known as. All cases which develop from primary are known as. Which is the index case? First case that comes to notice of an investigator. So the first case noticed is known as. Index case would be primary or secondary? Index case would be. It can be either primary or secondary. secondary. So the first person can also report to you, or the secondary cases can also report to you. So jaldi say, primary case is the first case. Secondary are all cases developing from first case, and index is first case which is noticed. Then if I talk about this phenomena, what is this phenomena called as? Shabash. This phenomena is called as the iceberg phenomena. This phenomena is known as the iceberg phenomena. Iceberg phenomena helps us differentiate between the visible cases and the invisible cases. Visible cases are the symptomatic cases. Visible cases are the symptomatic cases. Whereas invisible cases are the undiagnosed cases, asymptomatic cases, subclinical cases, cases in the latent period or window period of a disease. Okay, so all of these are susceptible population. All of these are the invisible part of the iceberg. So the visible part of the iceberg are symptomatic cases. Visible part of the iceberg are so tip of the iceberg are submerged part of the iceberg are and the diseases which will show iceberg phenomena, the diseases which will not show iceberg phenomena means, so in these diseases, subclinical or symptomatic cases would not be there. If the patient is infected, 100% times the patient will show symptoms. So such diseases which will not show iceberg phenomena, they are remembered by Rute Mera Pyar. They are remembered by Rute Mera Pyar. So RU goes for T goes for Epidemics. T goes for ME goes for RA goes for and Pyar goes for it is plus minus. Okay? But you say some cases can be supplemental, some very rarely. Okay? So Rute Mera for sure they do not show iceberg phenomena. No issues with this anybody now? Moving further. Now if I talk about different periods, guys. So incubation period is from the entry of organism till first sign or symptoms. Entry of organism till this is known as which period? Serial interval is the gap between, very good, primary case and secondary case. So the gap between primary case and secondary case is known as primary and secondary is known as entry of organism से first sign and symptoms is known as, and entry of organism till maximum infectivity is known as entry of organism till maximum infectivity is known as and 50% of cases developing signs and symptoms, this would be known as median incubation period. So the incubation period for COVID is 2 to 14 days, but 50% of COVID cases are developed by 5 days. So the median incubation period for COVID would be 5 days. Okay? So, yaad rakhna. Next, in a village with population 10,000, 500 were affected with COVID-19 during the second wave and 100 died. Calculate the CFR. CFR is case fatality rate. So tell me the formula for case fatality rate. Number of deaths out of the number of cases into 100. It will be expressed as percentage. And therefore it is a proportion. So case fatality rate is a no issues with this anybody? कोई दिक्कत आ रही है CFR में? ठीक है, तो यहाँ पे जल्दी से बताओ. Number of deaths were 100. Number of cases were 500 into 100 कितना होता है? It would be around 20%, right? Right? No issues with this. So case fatality rate is equal to the number of deaths upon number of cases into 100. No issues with this. So here it would be 20%. Then here you can see. So if I talk about a screening test where it should be applied, okay, this is the time where the disease starts. Okay, this is the time where it can be detected with the help of a screening test. If a screening test was applied, it can be detected at this point itself. Okay, when the patient is not even having symptoms. But If screening test is not applied in the population, the disease would be detected somewhere over here when the patient will have maximum signs and symptoms, and it would be detected with the help of diagnostic test. Okay, so the lead time that we will get, okay, the lead time that we will get, okay, the maximum time that we will get to diagnose the disease earlier and start the treatment as early as possible is known as the lead time. That is known as the lead time. So the time between the point A and point B is known as the time between point A and point B is known as, and at point A the disease would have been detected with the help of, at time point A the disease would have been detected with the help of screening test. Okay, no issues with this. Screening test, we will not start the treatment. Screening test would be done. We will suspect that the patient is having the disease. Then we will confirm it with the help of a diagnostic test, and then we will start the treatment in the patient. Okay, no issues with this. But if we start the treatment at point A itself, then the outcome of the patient, final outcome of the patient would be far, far better. Okay, that is what is lead time. Okay, lead time will help us actually having a good or a better outcome for our patient. Moving further. Probability that a person out of those tested positive on a screening test has the disease is known as, probability that a person out of those tested positive has the disease is known as, so जितने positive आए उसमें से कितनों को disease है, this is given by, so if I talk about the disease, okay, either the disease would be present or, and if I apply a screening test, either it would be positive or negative. If a person is having a disease and the screening test is also positive, this is called as true positive. If a person is not having the disease, then also the screening test came positive, then it is called as false positive. If a person is having the disease but the screening test came negative, then it is called as false negative. And if a person is not having disease, screening test is also negative, it is called as true negative. No issues with this table. ये table बनाना आना चाहिए, फिर सब easy हो जाता है. ठीक है? So here, if I talk about sensitivity of a screening test, okay, sensitivity of a screening test is given by the formula. So as I told you, sensitivity में आता है N, therefore it should be P. Okay, true positivity upon true positivity plus false negativity into 100. No issues with this. Then if I talk about specificity, इधर आता है P, so आना चाहिए N in the formula. So it is true negativity upon true negativity plus false positivity into 100. No issues with this. Then if I talk about positive predictive value, PPV, that means all positives will come over here, and it is given as true positive upon true positives plus false positives into 100. That means, समझ लो, out of all those who came positive on the screening test, actually how many people have the disease? Out of all those people who came positive on a screening test, how much percent have a disease? That is what is called as positive predictive value. And यही तो पूछा था तुम्हें question में. Probability that a person out of tested positive on a screening test that has the disease is known as positive predictive value. No issues with this. If I talk about NPV, it is negative predictive value. Here all n's would come. That is true negatives upon true negatives plus false negatives into 100. Revise करना है जल्दी से formula. ठीक है. Sensitivity में आता है n. Therefore the formula would be true positives upon true positives plus false negatives into 100. Specificity में आता है p. So therefore the formula would be true negatives upon true negatives plus false positives into 100. PPV positive predictive value में आता है all positives, that is true positives upon true positives plus false positives into 100. Negative predictive value is true negative upon true negatives plus false negative into 100. कोई दिक्कत नहीं है अभी यहाँ पे. ठीक है, बस फॉर्मूला अप्लाई करना, सॉल्व करना, दैट्स इट. ठीक है. And remember this one line, out of all those tested positive on a screening test, how many actually have a disease is given by positive predictive value. It is given by positive predictive value. Okay, no issues with this, guys. And out of all those having the disease, how many tested positive on a screening test is given by sensitivity. Out of all those having the disease, how many tested positive on a screening test is given by sensitivity. तो ये one liners आते हैं, ये पूछते हैं what is this. ठीक है, so this you need to remember. Starting with healthcare in India, jaldi se. Primary healthcare was defined in which conference? Very good. It was defined in the Alma-Ata conference. It was defined in the Alma-Ata conference of 1978 in Kazakhstan. Okay, no issues with this. So primary healthcare was defined by Alma-Ata conference. And this primary healthcare or the essential healthcare, जो हर एक इंसान की basic need है, that was defined in the Alma-Ata conference, and they actually described with 4 A's. They characterize this primary or essential healthcare with 4 A's, and those 4 A's are important because they ask you accept of that. Okay, so 4 A's. First, the healthcare should be acceptable. That means it should be acceptable by the rich, poor, and or in that particular given geographical area. It should not intrude with their customs or traditions. Okay, so the healthcare should be acceptable. Second, the healthcare should be available. That means it should be available in the place as well as hilly or tribal or remote areas also. Okay, so second A is availability. Third A, the healthcare should be accessible. Okay, the healthcare should be accessible. Okay, it should be accessible to everyone in the society and community. And last is it should be affordable. So it should be affordable to everyone in the society, whether rich or poor. So 4 A's, jaldi se. First is, second is, third is, and fourth is, नहीं भूलोगे, बेसिक ये लगाना है, आइडिया कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, ठीक है. Then if these are the 4 A's of primary healthcare or essential healthcare, इसमें गड़बड़ाते हो कभी-कभी. Elements are different, ठीक है. Elements of primary healthcare are different. Elements is a mnemonic in itself. इतना याद रखने की जरूरत नहीं है. E for essential drugs and all of that is there, ठीक है. At least 4 A's तो याद रख लो minimum. What are the 4 pillars of primary healthcare? Anybody? These are remembered as told you. So if they ask you 4 pillars or 4 principles of primary healthcare, then your answer changes. 4 A's, answer is different. Elements, answer is different. 4 pillars or 4 principles, answer is different. And these are remembered by the mnemonic I, A's. These are remembered by the mnemonic I, A's. And this was a question previously. So I goes for intersectoral coordination. I goes for intersectoral coordination. I goes for intersectoral coordination. Then A goes for, यही exception था. A goes for appropriate technology. A goes for appropriate. It is not facility. It is not anything else. Okay. A goes for appropriate technology, using ORS, using condoms, all of this. Okay. It is appropriate technology. Then C goes for community participation. C goes for community participation. That means Asha worker participating in the healthcare system. She is a resident of the same village, but the residents participating in the healthcare system is an example of community participation. And E goes for equitable distribution. E goes for equitable distribution. The healthcare should be equally distributed to the rich, poor, everybody. Okay? So what are the 4 principles or the 4 pillars of primary healthcare? I, A. A for C for and E for no issues with this. Anybody? Now if I talk about this logo is for क्या किसके लिए था? आयुष्मान भारत कौन बोला भाई? This is for the Ayush department. This is for the Ayush department, and Ayush department comes under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. It comes under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Okay? So it is for alternative forms of medicine. A stands for Ayurveda. A stands for Y stands for Yoga and Naturopathy. Y stands for Yoga and Naturopathy. U stands for a Greek medicine. U stands for S stands for Siddha, and H stands for homeopathy. S stands for homeopathy. No issues with this. Then, if I talk about this levels of healthcare in Indian healthcare system, okay, levels of healthcare in India. So, how many levels of healthcare do we have? 3 levels we have: primary, secondary, and tertiary. So primary healthcare is the first level of contact between the community and the healthcare system. So first level of contact is primary. First level of contact is primary. And primary health Primary level includes sub-center and PSC. Level includes primary level includes primary level includes it is the first level of contact. Then secondary level of healthcare includes community health center. Secondary level of healthcare includes CHC. Secondary level of healthcare includes CHC. And from the PSC, the patient would be referred to CHC. Therefore, the CHC would be called as first referral unit. CHC is known as first referral unit. Then tertiary level of healthcare is district hospital and medical colleges. The tertiary level of healthcare is district hospital and medical colleges, and this would be termed as second referral unit. This is known as second referral unit. No issues with this, anybody now? Moving further. Jaldi se आगे तो है ही. Then, if I talk about health center, the number of staffs over there, healthcare worker, population norms, education, ठीक है? And कुछ special points होंगे. So at a community health center, the number of staff is. So district hospitals, if they are small, I'll tell you. If the district hospitals are smaller, ठीक है? If they are non-metro cities वगैरह, then they can be in secondary level also. But if it is a large district hospital which has medical college in it, government district hospitals and medical colleges भी होते हैं. So then it becomes a tertiary level of healthcare. No issues with this, anybody know? CSC, Community Health Center. The number of staff would be 46 to 52. 46 to 52. The healthcare worker. I'm asking about the healthcare worker. Doctors होंगे, specialists होंगे, MD, MS, all of them. 7 medical officers are there. But which is the healthcare worker at CHC? It is the health supervisor. It is a health supervisor. So at CSC we have a. Then at PSC, primary health center, the number of staff would be 13 to 14. Minimum is 13 to 14 and maximum is 13 to 20. Okay? So the number of staff at PSC would be 13 to. Number of staff at PSC would be 13 to. Okay? 13 to 18 in type A PSC, 14 to 21 in type B PSC. Type A PSC means number of deliveries less than 20. Type B PSC means number of deliveries 20 or more than equal to 20. No issues with this. So number of staff at PSC is 13 to 21. Healthcare worker at PSC is कितनी बार भूलोगे, याद तो दिलाया था. Temperature monitoring. So healthcare worker at PSC is health assistant. Healthcare worker at PSC is health assistant. Healthcare worker at PSC is health assistant. At sub center, the number of staff would be 3 to 4. The number of staff at sub center is and the healthcare worker is multi-purpose worker. The healthcare worker is and instead of multi-purpose worker female, we can also have ANM, auxiliary nurse midwife. Then village level, the number of village level पे number of staff नहीं होता. So the first healthcare worker is there, who is Asha. So चलो पहले Asha तुम्हारे. So the first healthcare worker is Asha. So Asha is at which level? Village level. ठीक है. So Asha is at which level? Village level. ठीक है. And Asha का full form last time पूछा गया था. It was accredited social health activist. No issues with this. Okay. Then if I talk about the other healthcare workers at village level, it is a village health guide. And the next one is the traditional birth attendant. At Anganwadi center, the healthcare worker is Anganwadi Sevika. At Anganwadi center, the healthcare worker is Anganwadi Sevika or Anganwadi worker, whatever I call them. Okay? No issues with this. Then if I talk about population norm, so for CHC and the health supervisor, population norm would be same. PSC, health assistant, population norm is same. Sub center, MPW or ANM, population norm would be same. So jaldi se बताओगे अभी plains and hilly tribal areas. So for CSC in plains, population norm is 1 per 1,20,000. 1 per 1,20,000. In hilly or tribal areas, 1 per 80,000. PSC in plains, 1 per PSC in plains, 1 per PSC in hilly areas, 1 per PSC in hilly or tribal areas, 1 per subcenter in plains, 1 per subcenter in plains, 1 per subcenter in hilly or tribal areas, 1 per subcenter in hilly or tribal areas, 1 per विलेज लेवल पे आशा वर्कर का पॉपुलेशन नॉर्म न्यू, प्लीज मार्क इट एज न्यू पॉपुलेशन नॉर्म जो अभी हमने टारगेट किया है गोल. इट इज 2 per 1000 population. It is 2 per 1000 population. Village health guide 1 per village health guide 1 per 1000 population. Traditional birth attendant 1 per 1000 population. Traditional birth attendant 1 per 1000. Then Anganwadi Sevika or Anganwadi center in plains 1 per 400 to 800. In plains 1 per 400 to 800. In hilly or tribal areas 1 per 300 to 800 population. No issues with this anybody? So जल्दी से मैं रैंडम पूछूंगा, पॉपुलेशन नॉर्म जल्दी से आना चाहिए. CSC in plains, CSC in hilly or tribal area, multipurpose worker in plains 1 per 5,000. ANM in hilly or tribal areas 1 per 3,000. Subcenter in plains 1 per 5,000. Subcenter in hilly or tribal areas. Asha worker new norm is village health guide. Traditional birth attendant. Anganwadi Sevika in plains. Anganwadi center in hilly or tribal areas. 1 per 300 to 800. PSC in plains 1 per 30,000. PSC in hilly or tribal areas. Health supervisor in plains 1 per 1,20,000. Health supervisor in hilly and tribal areas 1 per 80,000. Health assistant in plains 1 per 30,000. Health assistant in hilly or tribal areas 1 per 20,000. No issues with this anybody? Now if I talk about education which was asked, ठीक है. सो हेल्थ सुपरवाइजर के लिए एज सच कोई स्पेसिफिक नॉर्म नहीं है, ठीक है. पीएससी के लिए हेल्थ असिस्टेंट उसका भी यूजुअली ही और शी शुड बी मिनिमम 12th पास, ठीक है, बट वो पूछेंगे नहीं, इंपॉर्टेंट वाले लिखवा रहा हूं बस. सब सेंटर के लिए मल्टीपर्पज वर्कर शुड बी मिनिमम आशा वर्कर मत भरो. Multipurpose worker should be minimum 12th pass. Multipurpose worker should be minimum 12th pass because multipurpose worker conducts delivery, she gives treatment, he prepares slides, everything is done. Okay. Then Asha worker minimum 8 pass. Recommended. So main is actually the patient. Asha worker should be a female between 25 to 45 years of age group. She should be a resident of the same village. She should be minimum 10th pass. But if no female is there in the village who is 10th pass, then the minimum qualification is 8th pass. And this was the one which people got confused with. Okay, no issues with this. And she is elected by the village panchayat. And she is accountable to the village panchayat. She is a member of the village health and sanitation committee. Okay, Asha unki bahut favorite hai. Then village health guide minimum is 6th pass. Village health guide minimum is 6th pass. Traditional birth attendant minimum is no qualification. ठीक है, उसको सब आता है. आंगनवाड़ी सेविका minimum 10th pass. आंगनवाड़ी सेविका minimum 10th pass. No issues with this now. कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, ठीक है. So आशा वर्कर should be a female between 25 to 45 years, resident of the same village. Shabash. What are the impact indicators to assess work of ASHA? Anybody? What are the impact indicators to assess the work of ASHA? So first of all, tuberculosis detected rates. Okay, so TB detected rates. Then second is leprosy detected rates. Second is leprosy detected rates. Third is protein allergy malnutrition detected rates. Protein allergy malnutrition detected rates. ठीक है. And the most important indicator or the major indicator, anybody? उसके अलावा बहुत सारे बाकी भी बांटते हैं. Multipurpose worker also distributes condoms and barrier contraceptives. Major impact indicator for ASHA is decrease in the infant mortality rate. Major impact indicator of ASHA is a decrease in the infant mortality rate. So important question है, ठीक है? Major impact indicator of ASHA is decrease in the infant mortality rate, because ASHA is responsible for post-natal visits. ASHA is responsible for post-natal visits. So she does her work cautiously, then the infant mortality rate in the village will go down. So the major impact indicator of ASHA's work is decrease in infant mortality rate. No issues with this, anybody? चलो आगे. Then national health programs के साथ start करते हैं. The first one, the image that you have, okay, ये अगर कोई image आती है ऐसी वाली, so these are the global goals, also known as sustainable development goals, also known as sustainable development goals, and they come under, this was a question, sustainable development goals are given by United Nations organization, and they come under which program of United Nations? They come under United Nations Development Project. They comes under United Nations Development Project. There are total how many goals? There are total 17 goals. And which goal is directly health related? Goal number 3. Which goal is directly health related? Goal number 3. पहले था वो 4, 5, 6, ठीक है? अभी नहीं है. अभी के 17 goals में the direct health related goal is goal number, direct health related goal is goal number 3. Okay, this is the logo, ठीक है? ऐसा कुछ आए तो याद रख लेना. No issues with this now. Important is UNDP के अंदर आता है sustainable development goals. One question I feel Rahul was asking, if it's still online. Important thing, he had a doubt that maternal mortality rate, sir, or maternal mortality ratio, now our goal is to reduce it to less than 70. So according to NHM, as I told you, according to National Health Mission, our goal is to bring it down to less than 100 per 1 lakh live births. According to Sustainable Development Goals, worldwide it is the goal to reduce maternal mortality to less than 70 per 1 lakh live births. ठीक है, no issues with this. So worldwide it is less than 70. India में हम अभी भी struggle कर रहे हैं less than 100 per 1 lakh live births according to our NHM 2013. ठीक है? Then if I talk about this program, so this program previously was known as RNTCP, Revised National TB Control Program. But 2021 January onwards, this was renamed as National Tuberculosis Elimination Program, NTEP. And this was the new logo for this program. TB Mukt Bharat, TB Free India, TB Harega, Desh Jitega. Okay? So please remember this logo. National TB Elimination Program, launched in 2021. Okay? So previously RNTCP was there. And in RNTCP, the most important component was this. That is DOTS. What is DOTS? Full form has been asked. What is DOTS? Directly observed treatment, short course. Directly observed treatment, short course. Okay? So this was like the healthcare worker will go to his house and give him the tablets of tuberculosis. Okay? That is what is the directly observed treatment, short course, DOTS, which was added in the RNTCP program. Pakka pura course, pakka ilaj. Okay? So DOTS, now again we have added one more thing, that is the ICT based adherence system. Okay? So ICT based adherence system matlab kya? With the help of computers now we have actually tried to increase the compliance of the patient. Okay, compliance of the patient means the patient should take the medicines regularly. So on the TB blister pack, ATT blister pack now, when the patient takes a medicine, beneath the medicine there is a toll-free number where the patient needs to call or give a missed call at. Okay, and that is being recorded. Okay, so ICT based adherence system is, if they ask you, that is known as DOTS. That is known as DOTS 99. That is known as DOTS. So ICT based adherence system is but computer based or ICT based surveillance system would be ICT based surveillance system would be which would be used for monitoring of all the TB cases by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Okay, so the ICT based surveillance system is NICSHE. Ni means eradication, Kshay means tuberculosis. So eradication of tuberculosis. No issues with this. ICT based adherence, DOTS 99. ICT based surveillance, NICSHE. Then UN also launched this. WHO and UN had a meeting, a high level meeting was conducted for ending TB. Okay, and this is the logo for that. A high level meeting of United Nations for ending the TB. It was conducted in 2018. So end TB was launched by United Nations. Okay. Now if I talk about TB patients, usually sputum smear positive will come in which category? And sputum smear negative in? So sputum smear positive or sputum smear negative patients come in category 1. They come in category 1. Whereas category 2 patients are previously treated patients. Category 2 patients are previously treated patients. And the treatment is same for all of them. Okay, for category 2 as well as category 1 as well as category 2, the treatment is same. How many months of intensive phase? How many months of intensive phase? 2 months of intensive phase. With which drugs? HRZE. And how many months of continuation phase? 4 months of continuation phase. And with which drugs? HRE. So jaldi se ATT given for category 1 or category 2 patients. Jaldi se batao how many months of intensive phase? With which drugs? How many months of continuation phase? Sorry, 4 months. 6 weeks. 4 months of continuation phase, making it a total of 6 months. And 4 months of continuation phase with which drug? HRE. Pyrazinamide is withdrawn. Why? Because it is hepatotoxic on long term. Okay, no issues with this. And multi-drug resistant TB or extensively drug resistant TB are treated by different regimes altogether. Okay? So jaldi se bata do, if a patient is having resistance to any one of the first line anti-tubercular drug, it is known as resistance to any one of the first line ATT drug, known as monoresistance. It is known as monoresistance to more than one of the first line. Apart from isoniazid and rifampicin, if there is more than one drug resistant, it is polyresistance. If there is resistance to isoniazid and rifampicin, and ये question अगर है तो PSM बताता है isoniazid and rifampicin, isoniazid and rifampicin दोनों को resistance है, then it is a multi-drug resistant TB in same person at the same time. Then it is called as multi-drug resistant TB. If there is resistance to isoniazid plus rifampicin plus any one of the fluoroquinolones or any one of the fluoroquinolones plus any one of the second line injectables, that is capreomycin, kanamycin, amikacin, then it is called as XDR-TB. Then it is called as XDR-TB. ठीक है? Extensively drug resistant TB. क्या बोलेंगे इसको? Extensively drug resistant TB. And the new drug which is used for management of XDR-TB is bedaquiline or delamanid. Bedaquiline or delamanid. Important. One more question: if a patient of HIV, as we know, the most common opportunistic infection of HIV in India is TB. If a patient of HIV is having TB, this was a recall question, then what should be started first, ART or ATT? ART. So what should be started first? ATT. So first of all, we will start ATT in the patient, followed by ART. And how many weeks gap? 2 weeks later. So first to be started is ATT. 2 weeks later, we will start ART, antiretroviral therapy. No issues with this. Important. If a patient is pregnant, with TB, what should be done? We will start ATT in the patient directly. Okay? 2 months plus 7 months. 2 months plus 7 months. So it is irrespective. Patient first trimester में है, third trimester में है. 9 months of treatment is given to the patient. Okay? Irrespective. ऐसा नहीं है 9 month की pregnancy होती है इसलिए 9 month दे रहे. In pregnancy, the total duration of ATT is 9 months. 2 months of intensive phase plus 7 months of continuation phase. And which drug is not given? Pyrazinamide. Which drug is not given? Pyrazinamide is not given. ठीक है? So HRE and next is HE. ठीक है? And if a patient is diagnosed with MDR-TB, ये सब questions आए थे इसलिए मैं पूछ रहा हूँ. TB is important. If a patient is diagnosed with MDR-TB, what should be done? You will start ATT in the patient. But prior to that, you will do medical termination of pregnancy. If the patient is diagnosed with MDR-TB, treatment is medical termination of pregnancy followed by ATT. But if the mother is not willing to perform MTP, she wants to continue the pregnancy, then you will start ATT in the patient. Then you will start ATT in the patient, but you will exclude 2 teratogenic drugs, and those are pyrazinamide to वैसे भी नहीं देता है, Those are kanamycin and ethionamide. Kanamycin and ethionamide. Important. ठीक है? So these two teratogenic drugs would be excluded from the regime if she wants to continue the pregnancy. Otherwise, for MDR-TB, MTB should be done. ठीक है? Moving further. This is what? This is National Health Mission. National Health Mission, also known as Rashtriya Swasthya Mission. Previously, it was National Rural Health Mission and National Urban Health Mission till 2012. But in 2013, it was together launched as National Health Mission. And as I told you, it is a mission, not a program. And it is the umbrella health mission, which includes all the other health programs in India. Okay, all RNTCP, NLEP, NTP, all of these would be included under the umbrella mission, that is National Health Mission of India. Image देख लो अच्छे से, family है, ठीक है? So all of this is seen. National Health Mission, NHM. No issues with this? Now, if I talk about this, what is this? This also comes under National Health Mission only. It is Janani Shishu Suraksha Karyakram. It is a part of the RCH program, Reproductive and Child Health Program of India. ठीक है? So Janani Shishu Suraksha Karyakram, previously known as Janani Suraksha Yojana, previously known as Maternal Benefit Scheme. ठीक है? So now it is known as JSSK, Janani Shishu Suraksha Karyakram. Janani means mother, Shishu means newborn. So the benefits which are given to the mother as well as newborn under the scheme would be, first of all, free delivery. First is free delivery. Second is free transport to and fro from the hospital. To and fro from the hospital. Next is free drugs. Next is free drugs. Next is free diagnostics. Next is free diagnostics. Then khana, free food. Free food. In NVD for 3 days. In NVD for 3 days. In C-section for 7 days. In C-section for 7 days. Kangaroo mother care is not there. Okay, please remember this logo. If it comes, it is Janani Shishu Suraksha Karyakram. Kangaroo mother care में वो actual mother देंगे and she would be holding her baby close to her skin. ठीक है? So this is different. ठीक है? So important है. Janani Shishu Suraksha Karyakram का one of the component is kangaroo mother care for sure. ठीक है? Kangaroo mother care comes under JSSK. Okay. For premature or low birth weight infants to prevent hypothermia in those patients. ठीक है? We discussed about KMC now. ठीक है? So free delivery, free transport, free drugs, free diagnostics, free food, and free treatment, and lastly free blood transfusion. Free blood transfusion. All of these come under Janani Shishu Suraksha Karyakram. ठीक है? Then next, this was also launched. Logo देख लो बस. India Newborn Action Plan. India Newborn Action Plan. Logo important. Next, if I talk about this, this is the logo for pulse polio immunization. This is the logo for pulse polio immunization. And it comes under which mission now? It comes under mission Indradhanush. It comes under mission Indradhanush. कितने बूंद जिंदगी के? 3 बूंद जिंदगी के. शाबाश. Next is this one, RBSK, राष्ट्रीय बाल स्वास्थ्य कार्यक्रम. राष्ट्रीय बाल स्वास्थ्य कार्यक्रम, from survival to healthy survival. ठीक है? RBSK important. So in RBSK there are 4 D's on which we work actually. ठीक है? So first is disease. First is disease. Second is deficiency. Second is deficiency. Third is defects. Third is defects. Fourth is disability. Fourth is disability or developmental delays. Developmental delays. Sorry. No issues with this. So these 4 D's and 7 C's आते हैं. 7 C's याद रखने की जरूरत नहीं है, but at least remember 7 C's come under the RKSK scheme, and RKSK राष्ट्रीय किशोर स्वास्थ्य कार्यक्रम. It is राष्ट्रीय किशोर स्वास्थ्य कार्यक्रम. ठीक है? किशोर means adolescents. Kishore means adolescents. So राष्ट्रीय बाल स्वास्थ्य कार्यक्रम is for children between, the beneficiaries are children between. राष्ट्रीय बाल स्वास्थ्य कार्यक्रम is for children between. इंडिया में बच्चे किसको बोलते हैं? 0 to 18. So India में children is from 0 to 18 years of age. Therefore राष्ट्रीय बाल स्वास्थ्य कार्यक्रम is for children between 0 to 18 years of age. But राष्ट्रीय किशोर स्वास्थ्य कार्यक्रम is for adolescents, and WHO defines adolescents as the age group between 10 to 19. Adolescents are age group between 10 to 19 years. No issues with this. So this is Rashtriya Kishore Swasthya Karyakram. Under this, iron and folic acid supplementation are also given to the patient. Okay? And all other facilities are also given. Okay? Then comes this one. This logo is for आँख किसमें बनी हुई है? This eye is seen in NPCB-VI, that is National Program for Control of Blindness and Visual Impairment. Previously it was known as NPCB. Now it is NPCB-VI. According to this program or according to WHO, blindness is said when the vision is less than 3/16 in best eye with best possible correction. In best eye with best possible correction. No issues with this. So yaad rakhna. So blindness according to WHO or NPCB-VI said when the vision is less than 3/16 in best eye with best possible correction. एक भी eye में if the vision is 3/60, then the person would not be termed as blind. Okay. Or if the vision is less than 3/16 both the eyes, but after using spectacles the vision improves, then also the patient would not be termed as blind. So after best possible correction also, if the vision remains less than 3/16 in the best eye, then the patient is considered as blind. Then the patient is considered as blind. ठीक है? सब कुछ करने के बावजूद अच्छी वाली आंख में भी अगर vision less than 3/60 है, then the person is blind. ठीक है? No issues with this. Prevalence of blindness कितना है अभी? Prevalence of blindness is 0.36. Prevalence of blindness is 0.36, and we have a goal or target to bring it down to less than 0.3%. We have a target to bring it down to less than 0.3%. No issues with this. Most common cause of blindness in India is most common cause of blindness in India is most common cause of blindness overall is most common preventable cause of blindness is vitamin A deficiency. Most common cause of ocular mortality is mortality मतलब blindness. Most common cause of ocular mortality is cataract. Most common cause of ocular mortality is most common cause of ocular morbidity disease refractive error. Most common cause of ocular morbidity is refractive errors. No issues with this now. कोई गलती नहीं करोगे. WHO बोलता है second most common cause of blindness nowadays after cataract is glaucoma. ठीक है? Vision 2020 program was given. Vision 2020 program was given by the WHO. ठीक है? And it was under the Right to Sight initiative. Right to Sight initiative. We also have launched our own Indian Vision 2020 program. In Global Indian Vision 2020 program, कल ही ऑफ था हुआ. The diseases included are torch, T for trachoma, T for trachoma, O for onchocerciasis, O for onchocerciasis, which is also known as river blindness, R for refractive error, C for cataract, and H for hood, childhood blindness, ठीक है? ऐसे याद रखना है. Then India में now we do not have which disease in India? Onchocerciasis. We don't अभी trachoma भी नहीं है, but in India we don't have onchocerciasis. Because the vector of onchocerciasis is not present in India, and the vector for onchocerciasis is black or simulum fly. Which fly? Black or simulum fly. So black or simulum fly is the vector for and it is not present in India. Therefore, we have removed O from our vision program and we have added CDG. We have added C for corneal blindness, D for diabetic retinopathy, and G for no issues with this now. याद रखना ये important है. Sorry guys. Sorry. Then if I talk about this one, ये new है थोड़ा सा. So just see the image. This is what Lakshya, and Lakshya is for safe delivery in the labor room. So safe and hygienic delivery should be carried out in labor room. Therefore, the Indian government or Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has recently launched this program known as Lakshya. No issues with this. Then we have this Pradhan Mantri Surakshit Matritva Abhiyan. Pradhan Mantri Surakshit Matritva Abhiyan. And this is usually for antenatal care. Antenatal care in which trimester? Second and third trimester. Which trimester mainly? Second and third trimester. Okay, given by the government of India. But by whom? Government practitioners or private practitioners? Don't know, but mainly by private practitioners at government hospitals. So the private practitioners will have a visit on date 9th of every month. Date 9th of every month. And they will give antenatal care for pregnant females between second and third trimester. And it is given by whom? Private practitioners. And this comes under which scheme? Pradhan Mantri Surakshit Matritva Abhiyan. Next, if I talk about this one, this is what? क्या? बोलो बोलो. जननी. क्या बोल रहे हो? विज्ञान कहाँ दिख रहा है इसमें? अच्छा, वो कहना चाहते हो, नहीं है वो. लॉजिक सही है. So please remember, सुन लो. So please remember, this is the previous logo used for जननी सुरक्षा योजना. ठीक है, no issues with this. पहले यूज किया जाता था, अभी नहीं यूज करते वो लोग यूजुअली. Then if I talk about Ujala, what is Ujala? So Unnat Jyoti by affordable LEDs for all. So LEDs would be given under this scheme. LEDs would be given under the scheme at subsidized rates or at affordable rates to all BPL households. ठीक है? That is what is known as Ujala. That is what is known as Ujala. Then what is Ujwala? Ujwala is free LPG connection. What is Ujwala? Free LPG connection. And LPG cylinders at subsidized rates. LPG cylinders at subsidized rates. No issues with this. So this comes under which scheme? Ujwala. This comes under Pradhan Mantri Ujwala Yojana. Swachh Indhan Behtar Jeevan. ठीक है? And this is the logo for Ministry of Women and Child Development. Ministry of Women and Child Development. And they have launched a scheme known as Ujawala. They have launched a scheme known as Ujawala. And Ujawala scheme is for prevention of trafficking. It is for prevention of child trafficking and trafficking bolo. Okay. So for trafficking, so for prevention of trafficking, rehabilitation of these trafficked victims, okay, is done under which scheme? Ujawala scheme. So jaldi se free LPG connections, subsidized LEDs, and prevention of trafficking, rehabilitation of trafficking, Ujawala. No issues with this. Then this pink ribbon is for breast cancer awareness. Pink ribbon is for red ribbon is for HIV AIDS awareness. Red ribbon is for so the first case of AIDS in India 1986 in Chennai. 1987 we started the program called as National AIDS Control Program, under which National AIDS Control Organization was established. India's Voice Against AIDS, which comes under Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. ठीक है? So under NACO program now, we have instituted these type of centers. These are ICTC centers. What do we mean by ICTC centers? Integrated Counseling and Testing Centers. What are meant by ICTC? Integrated Counseling and Testing Centers. ठीक है? Yes, Maharashtra. ठीक है? Integrated Counseling and Testing Centers. So usually at these centers there is diagnosis of HIV is being done and the treatment of the patients is started under this ICTC. So this logo comes for ICTC, Integrated Counseling and Testing Centers. No issues with this. याद रखना. First case of AIDS was noted overall in the world in 1981 in USA. ठीक है? याद रखना. No issues with this. If I talk about ART, guys, Antiretroviral therapy. What is the recommended therapy? Which drugs? Triple therapy is given. Lead drugs are given. Lead drugs. ठीक है? L goes for lamivudine. L goes for lamivudine. E goes for efavirenz. E goes for efavirenz. And T goes for tenofovir. T goes for tenofovir. No issues with this. If a mother is infected with HIV, the maternal to child transmission rate would be mother to child transmission rate would be 30%, and maximum risk of transmission is during delivery. Maximum risk of transmission is during 12 to 16% is seen during breastfeeding. Developed countries breastfeeding is contraindicated. Developed countries breastfeeding is, but in developing countries like ours, breastfeeding is not contraindicated. Breastfeeding is not contraindicated. Okay, if a mother was having HIV and she delivered a baby, so the baby should be given which drug? Most commonly we use nevirapine. Most commonly we use nevirapine, and the best drug is, and it should be given within a period of 0 to 6. Point nahi hai. It should be given within a period of 0 to 6 weeks. It should be given within a period of 0 to 6 weeks. Single dose of nevirapine is given. No issues with this, anybody? Now, this logo is for Anemia Mukt Bharat. Okay, Anemia Mukt Bharat. Here we are trying to reduce the prevalence of anemia by 3% every year. 3% every. So under Anemia Mukt Bharat, we are trying to reduce the prevalence of anemia by 3% every year, and it has a 6x6x6 strategy. What do we mean by 6x6x6 strategy? It will have 6 beneficiaries. It will have 6 beneficiaries. It will have 6 interventions. It will have 6 interventions, and it will have 6 institutional mechanisms, and it will have 6 institutional mechanisms. Okay? So 6x6x6 strategy is used for. It is used for Anemia Mukt Bharat. 95 strategy is used for 95 strategy is used for HIV. 95 strategy is used for HIV. ठीक है? So 95% of the HIV, 95% of the people living with HIV should be tested positive. So 95% of the क्या हुआ? 95% of people living with HIV. यार टाइम मत बर्बाद करो. 95% of people living with HIV should know their status. 95% of the people living with HIV should be diagnosed, and 95% who are started on treatment should have a decreased viral load. क्या है यार? ब्रेक ले लो, बट मैं आज PSM खत्म कर रहा हूँ. अभी ले लो भले. कब आ रहे हो? 7:30 वापस. नहीं चाहिए ब्रेक पक्का? जिसको लेना है जल्दी से 5-10 मिनट में आ जाओ यार. बोलो. हाँ नहीं थैंक यू सो मच. नहीं कुछ नहीं. Of salt. What is the level at the manufacturing site? What is the level at the manufacturing site or production site?
30 ppm.
So at production it is 30 parts per mole. At production it is 30 parts per mole. Whereas at consumer level it is 15 parts per mole. At consumer level it is 15 parts per mole. So please remember, at production site iodinization should be
30.
at production site iodinization should be
30.
at consumer level iodinization should be
20.
at consumer level iodinization should be 15. No issues with this. Then next, here you can see that this one that you can see concentric circles. That means you have the whole community. Okay, out of those half, that is 50% are hypertensive patients. Out of those half, that is 50% are diagnosed with hypertension. Out of those, 50% are diagnosed and adequately treated with hypertension. Diagnosed and treated with hypertension. And out of those 50% only receive adequate treatment for hypertension. So this is actually known as what rule? This is known as rule of halves. This is known as rule of halves. So rule of halves is for which disease? This question has been asked. Hypertension. Rule of halves is followed by for which disease? Rule of halves is followed for which disease? Then this blue colored ring is for which disease? So it is for diabetes. Blue colored ring is for blue colored ring is for blue colored ring is for. Then this logo, health in your hands, आपकी सेहत आपके हाथ. So this is the logo for National Program for Prevention and Control of Cancer, Diabetes, Cardiovascular Diseases and Stroke. Okay, so NPCDCS. This is the logo for NPCDCS program, right? So it is for majorly for the prevention of cardiovascular diseases. And for prevention of cardiovascular diseases, please let me know which diet is recommended under NPCDCS or by WHO. It is for hypertension, it is the DASH diet. For hypertension, it is the DASH diet which is recommended, high in fruits and vegetables. For prevention of any coronary artery disease or cardiovascular disease, we have the prudent diet. This was a question. Which diet is recommended under NPCDCS? Which diet is recommended under NPCDCS? Prudent diet. Prudent diet. That means fat intake should be low. Okay, that is what is a prudent diet. No issues with this, anybody? Then this logo is actually for NREGA. NREGA is Rashtriya Gramin Rozgar Guarantee Adhiniyam. Okay, no issues with this. National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. Okay, so that is what is NREGA. And what is this 100 signifying over here? So 100 minimum 100 days of employment per year. Minimum 100 days of employment per year. For how many members in a family? Only one member of the family. How many members of the family? Only one member per family. And they will get a job card. Okay. And the job or the unskilled manual labor work which would be given to this individual would be within how much kilometer of his home radius? It should be within 15. It should be within 15 kilometer of his radius of his home. Okay? So that is what is NREGA or National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. No issues with this NREGA. Sometimes also referred to as MANREGA, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Guarantee Scheme. Then this IDSP. IDSP is what? Integrated Disease Surveillance Project. IDSP is what? Integrated Disease Surveillance Project. So what do we mean by surveillance? Surveillance to dekh liya humne. Surveillance is actually continuous scrutiny of all the factors of a disease. Continuous scrutiny and monitoring of all the factors of a disease or health program is known as surveillance. Okay? So this is the logo for IDSP, Integrated Disease Surveillance Project. Okay? So under this there are 3 forms usually. Okay? So at least itna yaad rakho image, it is more than enough. Forms yaad rakhne ki minimum zarurat nahi hai. Then if I talk about this one, this is the scheme known as Ayushman Bharat scheme. This scheme is known as the Ayushman Bharat scheme. So it is a national protection health scheme. It is a national health protection scheme. No issues with this. And it is also known as the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. It is also known as the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. Under Ayushman Bharat scheme or Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, the health benefit or the health coverage which is given, it is 5 lakh per individual or per family? Per family per year. Per family per year. So the medical benefit which is given under Ayushman Bharat scheme, it is how much? 5 lakh per family per year. So this was a question. A medical benefit given under Ayushman Bharat scheme is how much? 5 lakhs per family per year. And now under this scheme only 10.74 crore families are included, 50 crore plus population is there. And we are establishing health and wellness center. 1.5 lakh plus health and wellness centers are to be established. Under which scheme? Ayushman Bharat scheme. Which centers? Health and wellness centers. Health and wellness centers. And in Ayushman Bharat scheme, which hospitals are included? Anybody? These are the private empaneled hospitals. These are the private empaneled hospitals. And what is the empanelment criteria? Which private hospital can have the Ayushman Bharat scheme? Having minimum number of 10 beds. Minimum 10 number of beds should be present in a private hospital. So it can be empaneled under the Ayushman Bharat scheme. No issues with this, anybody? I hope so. ठीक है, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. And which care is given to the patient? Primary, secondary or tertiary? So it is secondary or tertiary care which is given under the scheme. It is secondary or tertiary care hospitalization which is given. It is not for primary. Okay? Primary care can be taken from a PSC also. But under Ayushman Bharat scheme, it is the secondary or tertiary care or hospitalization which is given. No issues with this now? And for help in hospitals, usually you will find a Ayushman Mitra. You will find Ayushman Mitra. So he is a person who will help you actually get the Ayushman Bharat scheme. Next one, this logo is for National Leprosy Elimination Program. If you see a lotus in the hand and a sun, okay, it is a National Leprosy Elimination Program. As we know, leprosy is the oldest disease known to mankind. Oldest disease known with a causative agent was scabies. Oldest disease known with the causative agent was scabies. Oldest disease known, oldest bacterial disease known with a known cause was anthrax. Oldest bacterial disease known with a cause was known as anthrax. Okay? So National Leprosy Elimination Program, NLEP. And under NLEP, we know we are giving these kind of treatments. And this treatment is known as multi-drug therapy, MDT. So these are blister packs for multi-drug therapy. And multi-drug therapy for paucibacillary or multibacillary leprosy. It is for how much duration? In paucibacillary it is, multibacillary it is, follow-up should be for
6 months.
Follow-up in paucibacillary,
2 years.
follow-up in paucibacillary 2 years, follow-up in multibacillary 5 years, follow-up in multibacillary 5 years. And which are the triple therapy which is given for leprosy patients? So first, if they ask you single drug of choice, answer is Dapsone. And the other drugs which are given are clofazimine and rifampicin. Clofazimine and rifampicin and the third drug is Dapsone. So all these three drugs are given in paucibacillary also and multibacillary also. Those are also same. Only thing that differs is the duration of treatment and the duration of follow-up. No issues with this now? Yaad rakho. Okay? So out of these three drugs, daily doses are given for all the three. Dapsone, clofazimine and rifampicin ke daily doses diye jata hai. But a monthly supervised dose is also given for them. Which are the two drugs which have a monthly supervised dose? So these are the monthly supervised dose which are to be taken in front of a doctor. Very good. It is clofazimine and rifampicin. Supervised doses are given for clofazimine and rifampicin. No issues with this now? Yaad rakho. Then this is the logo for International Day of Yoga. This is the logo for International Day of Yoga, which is celebrated on 21st June. Yoga for harmony and peace. Okay? Then this logo, Zindagi Chuno Tambaku Nahi. This is for National Tobacco Control Program. This is the logo for National Tobacco Control Program. I left tobacco. ठीक है, ऐसा वो होगा. ना जिंदगी चुनो तंबाकू नहीं. National Tobacco Control Program. Now, please tell me, no tobacco day is celebrated on. No tobacco day is celebrated on. आ रहा है पास में. 31st of May. No tobacco day is celebrated on. No tobacco day is observed on 31st of May. Then anti-TB day or TB awareness day is celebrated on 24th of March. TB awareness day on 24th of March. Then this is the logo for Arogya Setu. मैं सुरक्षित, हम सुरक्षित, भारत सुरक्षित. ठीक है? So this Arogya Setu was an online mobile app which was started for which disease? It was started for monitoring of COVID. So here you can monitor the cases of COVID. Contact tracing can be done. Okay. So all of these comes under this Arogya Setu app. Image important. Then this is the logo for radiation hazard. This is the logo for radiation hazard. And what is the maximum permissible radiation? Anybody? Maximum permissible radiation is for a normal man. Maximum permissible radiation for a normal man is 5 rads per year. Maximum permissible radiation for a normal man is 5 rads per year. Then this is the logo for. This is the logo for next one. Bio. क्या दिक्कत आ रही है भाई? मत डिस्टर्ब कर. आ गया? कहाँ है? Biohazard. So tell me the biosafety levels for COVID. Anybody? Biosafety levels for COVID. So for routine diagnostic testing of COVID, biosafety level 2. For routine diagnostic testing of COVID, biosafety level 2. So for RT-PCR of COVID, biosafety level 2. But for viral isolation or culture, biosafety level 3. For viral isolation and culture, biosafety level 3. ठीक है? No issues with this. याद रखना. Most common bioterrorism agent. Anybody? Most common bioterrorism agent used is anthrax. Most common bioterrorism agent used is anthrax. Most dangerous bioterrorism agent is. Most dangerous bioterrorism agent is smallpox. Most dangerous bioterrorism agent is. Most dangerous bioterrorism agent is smallpox. And most lethal toxin for which bioterrorism agent? Most lethal toxin is for botulism. Most lethal toxin is for botulism. No issues with this. ये important one liner से याद रखो. यार क्या है? एक तो डिस्कनेक्ट हो जा भाई. हो ही गया डिस्कनेक्ट. Just a minute, guys. Sorry for the interruption. Then which is the instrument used for? मैं छोड़ नहीं रहा, मैं तो पूछ रहा हूँ next question. Which is the instrument used for measuring low air velocity? Instrument used for measuring low air velocity? Tata Thermometer. The instrument used to measure low air velocity is Tata Thermometer. Instrument used to measure cooling power of air is? Again, Tata Thermometer. The instrument used to measure cooling power of air is Tata Thermometer. The instrument used to measure high wind velocity or high air velocity is anemometer. The instrument used to measure high air velocity is anemometer. The instrument used to measure air humidity is Sling Psychrometer or hygrometer. The instrument used to measure humidity is Sling Psychrometer or hygrometer. ठीक है? And the instrument which tells you the direction of wind is wind vane. It is the wind vane. क्या है ये भाई? Join तो हो. क्या हो गया इसका? चला ना जाए बस. No issues now if I stretch the session, guys. Because see, I am practical. Being practical, I am also having exams, so I will be taking an off from around 16 or 17. So till that, I need to complete surgery also. I need to complete anatomy also one session. ठीक है? 3 session surgery. But I am not getting regular classes because definitely we are having other classes also over here. You are having T&Ds also. So I just expect you to sit for a longer time today, so we can just finish it off. क्या है यार ये? हाँ? हाँ? कहाँ से? यार एक बार इनको बताता हूँ. वहां से स्टार्टेड, यहाँ से स्टार्टेड है, दोनों ने स्टार्ट किया. हाँ बात कर रहे हैं. चल गया, कहाँ चला यार? Guys, just a minute. नंबर रट जाएगा मुझे. Guys, please wait a minute. जल्दी से मैं रिवाइज कराता हूँ, फिर वो अगला लिख लेंगे बस. ओके, नेक्स्ट. तो जल्दी से. यार कौन सी केबल है यहाँ पे? तो केबल ही अटैच नहीं है. दिस इज द ओनली चार्जर. वहां पे होगा पीछे कुछ प्रॉब्लम. ठीक है. सो नेक्स्ट गाइस, प्लीज, इंपॉर्टेंट है. बेस्ट मेथड ऑफ डिसइंफेक्शन ऑफ वाटर इज, मैं लिख लेता हूँ, बाद में लिखी जाएगी. बेस्ट मेथड ऑफ डिसइंफेक्शन ऑफ वाटर इज, शाबाश. कौन है वो? हाथ उठाओ जरा. बेस्ट मेथड फॉर डिसइंफेक्शन ऑफ वाटर इज boiling. Best method for disinfection of water is best method for disinfection of water is followed by chlorination. Followed by chlorination. So best method is boiling. पता नहीं क्या होगा. वेटिंग आ रहा है. So then important guys, for chlorination, free or residual chlorine is measured by which instrument? Fluoroscope. Free or residual chlorine is measured by? Free or residual chlorine is measured by? Free or residual chlorine is measured by? Best test to measure free or residual chlorine is OTA. Best test to measure free or residual chlorine is OTA, ortho-toluidine arsenide test. Horrocks apparatus measures the chlorine demand. ठीक है, important difference समझ लो. If a water is to be disinfected with chlorination, ठीक है, how much chlorine should go inside that water? That is what is chlorine demand, and that is calculated by Horrocks apparatus. ठीक है, and once we have calculated the chlorine demand of that water, we have added chlorine. Apart from that, the extra chlorine that we will add, that is known as free or residual chlorine, and this free or residual chlorine is measured by fluoroscope. But the best test to measure it is OTA, ortho-toluidine arsenide test. No issues with this. समझ गए difference? How many beakers are there in Horrocks apparatus? 6 plus 1. There are total 6 white beakers and 1 black beaker, and the black beaker contains the indicator known as starch iodide. Black beaker contains starch iodide. No issues with this. Okay, याद रख लो. Next, if I talk about this one, sorry, air pollution, the most important chemical. Thank you so much. पहले कर ही देते हैं अभी जल्दी से, ठीक है. तो जल्दी से बता दो, अभी ये बाद में लिख लूंगा मैं. So this is the symbol for biohazard, okay, and it is usually outside the laboratories wherever there is any investigation or any research going on. ठीक है, so outside these laboratories usually we have this symbol of biohazard, and it is also used for biomedical waste management. It is also the symbol for biomedical waste management because it also comes under biohazard, right? No issues with this. Then this is क्या है? उज्ज्वला योजना, प्रधानमंत्री सुरक्षित मातृत्व अभियान. डिजिटल इंडिया का लोगो ये है, ठीक है, डी, डिजिटल इंडिया का लोगो. देन दिस इज स्वच्छ भारत मिशन, चश्मा, स्वच्छ भारत मिशन, एक कदम स्वच्छता की ओर. नो इश्यूज विद दिस. देन दिस इज नेशनल हेल्थ प्रोटेक्शन स्कीम, प्रीवियसली नोन एज राष्ट्रीय स्वास्थ्य बीमा योजना. राष्ट्रीय स्वास्थ्य बीमा योजना. ओके, सो दीज आर द इंपॉर्टेंट स्कीम्स दैट आर रनिंग, एंड दिस इज द स्मार्ट सिटी, एंड ये दिस इज जनधन, प्रधानमंत्री जनधन योजना. ठीक है, नो इश्यूज विद दिस. आई एम नॉट इन फेवर और अगेंस्ट एनीवन. मैं पहले ही बता रहा हूँ. Environment and health. Best method for disinfection of water is boiling, followed by chlorination. So chlorination में usually we will add chlorine to the water, and the chlorine demand of water is measured by chlorine demand of water is measured by chlorine demand of water is measured by Aurochs apparatus. Okay, how many white beakers? 6 white beaker. And how many black beaker? 1 black beaker. And black beaker contains an indicator known as indicator known as starch iodide. Whereas free or residual chlorine is measured by free or residual chlorine is measured by free or residual chlorine is measured by. So this one is a chloroscope. This is a chloroscope. No issues with this. Now, main disinfecting action of chlorine is due to which form of chlorine? Hypochlorous acid. Main disinfecting form of chlorine is main disinfecting form of chlorine is main disinfecting form of chlorine is hypochlorous acid. Main disinfecting form of chlorine is hypochlorous acid. Most of you will mark as ions. Don't mark it as ions. It is hypochlorous acid. Okay, no issues with this. Anybody? Sorry, guys. Then, if I talk about what is the tolerable sound level, so tolerable sound level is tolerable sound level is tolerable sound level is less than 90 decibels. Tolerable sound level is less than 90 decibels. If there is a chronic or prolonged exposure to sound of more than 90 decibels, the patient can have auditory fatigue. The patient can have auditory fatigue. And if there is a chronic exposure to a sound more than 100 decibels, so chronic or long-term exposure to a sound more than 100 decibels can cause permanent hearing loss. It can cause permanent hearing loss. Whereas a sudden exposure to 150 to 160 decibel will lead to tympanic membrane rupture. Sudden exposure to 150 to 160 decibels will cause tympanic membrane rupture. Important. No issues with this? I hope so. Take question tha. What is the recommended level or tolerable level of sound in a hospital ward? In a hospital ward, it is 20 to 35 decibels. In a hospital ward, it is 20 to 35 decibels. No issues with this now? Yaad rakh lena. Best test for assessing free level of chlorine is OTA. Best test is orthotoluidine arsenide test. No issues with this because it measures free as well as combined chlorine. Okay? Next, if I talk about water contamination, which is the best indicator of water contamination? Anybody? Best indicator are coliforms. That is your E. coli. So best indicator is recent indicator of water contamination is recent indicator of water contamination is fecal streptococci. Recent indicator of water contamination is and remote indicator of water contamination is then maximum permissible radiation for normal human, as I told you, it is 5 rads per year. Maximum permissible radiation for a normal human is 5 rads per year. But maximum permissible radiation exposure for a pregnant woman is 0.5 rads per year. For a pregnant woman is 0.5 rads per year. And therefore, we avoid X-rays or any radiation in a pregnant female. Okay. So for preventing radiation exposure, we use the lead apron. What is the thickness of lead apron? More than 0.5 mm. What is the thickness of lead apron? More than 0.5 mm. Then which is the best indicator of air pollution? Anybody? Best indicator or best chemical indicator of air pollution is it is sulfur dioxide. So best indicator of air pollution is apart from this carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, perfluorocarbons, hydrofluorocarbons, multiple are there. And one important jiska question tha, and they have asked you, this index is used for measurement of which pollution? So that was soiling index. Don't get confused. It is not soil pollution. It is air pollution. Soiling index is used for Soiling index is used for soiling index is used for we can even use particulate matter, suspended particulate matter. Okay? Then for air pollution, if I ask you which is the best biological indicator, best biological indicator for air pollution is best biological indicator for air pollution is best biological indicator for air pollution is and air pollution control comes under the Central Pollution Control Board of New Delhi. Okay, no issues with this. Then this one, this is a Sling Psychrometer. This is a Sling Psychrometer, and Sling Psychrometer is used for measurement of Sling Psychrometer is used for measurement of Sling Psychrometer is used for measurement of which instrument is used for air humidity measurement, and the other one is hygrometer. Other one is hygrometer. This one is what? So this one is a Tata Thermometer. This one is a Tata Thermometer, and Tata Thermometer is used for measurement of two things. First is a low air velocity. First is the low air velocity, also termed as low wind velocity. अलग कुछ नहीं है, एक ही है. तो नाम बदल के आएगा. Don't get confused. It is low air velocity or low wind velocity. And second is cooling power of air. Second is cooling power of air. Then if I ask you which is the instrument used to measure, sorry, which is the instrument used to measure high wind velocity or high air velocity? The instrument used to measure high wind velocity is it is anemometer. The instrument used to measure high air velocity is instrument used to measure high air velocity is, and this instrument will tell you the direction of the wind. This instrument will tell you the direction of wind, and direction of wind is told by wind vane. Direction of wind is told by, so this instrument is actually a wind vane, north east south east west. Okay, north south east west, sorry. ठीक है, no issues with this now. Instrument समझ गए? Revise करने जल्दी. चल जल्दी. Higher velocity, direction of wind, Tata thermometer gives and cooling power of air and lower velocity and air humidity. Why? Which two instruments? First is Sling Psychrometer and hygrometer and Shabash. Which protocol was signed by the countries to reduce greenhouse gas emission? So greenhouse gas emission, the major contributor to greenhouse gases is anybody? It is water vapor. The major contributor for greenhouse gas emission is water vapor. The major greenhouse gas emission contributor is water vapor, followed by carbon dioxide. ठीक है, याद रखना. And the protocol which was signed was known as Kyoto Protocol. The protocol was known as Kyoto Protocol, signed by 187 countries. ठीक है? So the Kyoto Protocol to reduce the greenhouse gas emission. No issues with this. This was a direct question. Then strength of sewage is measured by. So refuse is the solid waste from the. याद रख लो. Refuse is the solid waste from industry or house. Garbage is the solid waste from the kitchen. Sewage is actually the liquid waste containing human excreta. Sewage is the liquid waste containing human excreta, and sludge is the liquid waste without human excreta. Sludge is the liquid waste without human excreta. So what? The strength of sewage is measured by biological oxygen demand. Strength of sewage is measured by biological oxygen demand. Strength of sewage is measured by biological oxygen demand. And it would be a problem if the sewage is more than 300. If the biological oxygen demand is more than 300. Important, इसी में बता दो जल्दी से. Hardness of water, like hardness of water should be reduced if it is more than 150 milligrams. Okay, hardness of water should be reduced if it is more than 150 milligrams. No issues with this, anybody? याद रखना. Chlorination works best at what pH of water? 7. Exact 7. Okay, chlorination would work best if the water pH is 7. All these are one-liners. जल्दी से communicable disease. Then chickenpox का communicability period. Best answer is till Till scab forms. Best answer is till the vesicle forms the scab. Till that period, the chicken pox vesicles would be communicable. Okay, so the best answer would be till scab forms. अगर वो नहीं option में, then the answer would be 2 days prior, 5 days after the rash. 2 days prior and 5 days after the rash. Measles it is 4 days prior, 5 days after the rash. 4 days prior and 5 days after the rash. 4 plus 5 9. Measles का post dose 9 months. तो मैंने तो ऐसे याद. 4 days prior and 5 days after the rash. For rubella and mumps also it is 4 days and 7 days, but you can remember it as 4 days and 5 days. ठीक है? Influenza it is 1 to 2 days prior and 1 to 2 days after the rash. Influenza के लिए it is 1 to 2 days prior and 1 to 2 days after the rash. Sorry, after the symptoms. Diphtheria 14 to 28 days from symptom onset. 14 to 28 days from. For diphtheria it is communicability, means the ability of the person to spread the disease to some other individual is known as communicability. ठीक है, आप समझ गए? हाँ, diphtheria can spread from 14 to 28 days till from the onset. 14 to 28 days from the onset. Tuberculosis, as long as it is not treated. As long as it is not treated. As long as it is not treated. HIV, lifelong. HIV is communicable lifelong. Tetanus will not have communicability period because tetanus does not show person to person transmission. Rather, it is acquired from the soil. It is acquired from the soil. Tetanus is caused by Clostridium tetani, and the reservoir for Clostridium tetani is soil. Reservoir for Clostridium tetani is soil. Appearance of Clostridium tetani, drumstick appearance. Appearance is drumstick appearance. ठीक है? Then meningococcus till it is negative from the nasopharyngeal swab. Till it is negative from the nasopharyngeal swab, it will be communicable. ठीक है? Important. Then if I talk about incubation periods, guys, important है. Incubation period of measles is 10 days the fever starts, 14 days the rash appears. One to be marked till 10th day. One to be marked till 10th day. One to be marked till pearl index नहीं ऊपर वाला. It is incubation. ठीक है, नीचे आ रहा है. Rubella incubation period is 2 to 3 weeks. That is 14 to for chicken pox it is. So for mumps also it is same, 14 to 21 days. Rubella also it is same, 14 to 21 days or 2 to 3 weeks. मैंने कैसे याद रखा है? MMR रखते हो ना. Measles 10 to 14 days याद रह जाता है. उसके आगे mumps and rubella 14 to 21 days. ठीक है? Chicken pox. So the range is 10 to 21 days. Range is 10 to 21 days. On an average 14 to 16 days. Influenza, important है. 18 to 72 hours. Influenza it is on how many days? 1 to 3 days. How many days? 1 to 3 days. Diphtheria and yellow fever 2 to 6 days. Diphtheria and yellow fever same for both. Diphtheria and yellow fever 2 to 6 days. Cholera 1 to 2 days. Cholera 1 to 2 days. Cholera 1 to 2 days. Enteric fever is what? Shabash. It is typhoid. Enteric fever is typhoid. Typhoid के लिए है 10 to 14 days. Typhoid it is 10 to dengue it is 3 to 10 days. Dengue it is malaria it is. So now there are various Plasmodium species. Tell me the shortest one. Shortest is 12 days for. अच्छा वैसे बता रहे हैं. Shortest among the Plasmodium species, 12 days of incubation period is for Plasmodium falciparum. Shortest is for and longest is 28 days for Plasmodium malariae. Longest is 28 days for Plasmodium. So shortest incubation period for which Plasmodium species? Longest incubation period for which it is malaria. No issues with this, anybody? Staphylococcus food poisoning. Staphylococcus food poisoning. Staphylococcus food poisoning. Tetanus. 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 And therefore it is known as which day disease? Therefore it is known as which day disease? On an average it is 8. ठीक है? SARS-CoV-2, that is your coronavirus, COVID-19. It is 2 to 14 days. It is 2 to 14 days. Median incubation period is 5 days. Median incubation period is. Then revise करना चाहते हो? जल्दी. Measles है. Measles है. Rubella. Rubella. Mumps. 14 to 21. Mumps. Mumps. Chickenpox. Chickenpox. Influenza. Influenza. How many days? Diphtheria. Yellow fever. 2 to 6 days again. Yellow fever. Cholera. Typhoid. Typhoid. Endemic fever. Dengue. Plasmodium falciparum. 12 days. Malaria. Shortest course. Falciparum. Longest course. Staph food poisoning. Tetanus. SARS-CoV-2. Now, maximum risk of transmission of which disease during which time? So, if there is mother to child transmission, that is vertical transmission of a disease. Okay, maximum risk of transmission during first trimester is for which diseases? Rubella and varicella. Rubella and varicella means chickenpox. Varicella means chickenpox. Second trimester it is only parvovirus B19. Okay. Third trimester it is toxoplasmosis. Third trimester it is toxoplasmosis. Second is syphilis. Next one is hepatitis B. Next one is hepatitis B. No issues with this. Now during delivery it is HIV. During delivery it is hepatitis C. And third important is herpes. So jaldi se. Maximum risk of rubella transmission. Maximum risk of hepatitis B. Maximum risk of herpes. Maximum risk of varicella. Maximum risk of herpes. Maximum risk of herpes. Maximum risk of HIV. Maximum risk of varicella. Maximum risk of chickenpox. Maximum risk of toxoplasmosis. Maximum risk of syphilis. Moving further, ठीक है? A village had 100 children less than 5 years. In 2020, 30 developed measles. I hope all of you are quite aware that measles disease अगर एक बार हो जाता है, if measles disease occurred once time, then the person will get lifelong immunity for that. ठीक है? The person gets immunized for that disease. So 30 developed measles. 44 got vaccinated last year. Okay. So how many children are immunized already? 74. How many children are immunized? 74, because 30 got measles and 44 were immunized. Now in this year, April, one case of measles was occurred. Okay, one case of measles occurred, and now 5 new cases were reported. So this one case of measles is known as the primary case, whereas these 5 cases are known as the secondary case because they developed from the primary case. Right? So now they are asking you to calculate the secondary attack rate. Important is secondary attack rate. So secondary attack rate is a marker of communicability. Secondary attack rate is a marker of communicability of a disease. No issues with this. Yeah, not transmission of a disease. Secondary attack rate would be number of secondary cases upon total susceptibles. Susceptibles are the population at risk. Into 100 into expressed in percentage, and therefore it is a proportion. So secondary attack rate is a so ये ऐसी चीजें पूछते हैं, CFR देके पूछेंगे ये है क्या, मैटरनल मोर्टालिटी रेट बोलते हैं, बट है क्या, रेशियो. So that is the thing you need to remember. Number of secondary cases कितने यहाँ पे? So the number of secondary cases are 5. Primary case is not included in the numerator or in the denominator. ठीक है, because that person is not a secondary case and that person is not a susceptible also, right? So the total number of secondary cases were 5. Total susceptibles were 74 were already immunized. One has developed measles now. So 75 are already gone. So the population at risk is, so out of the 100 children, population at risk is into 100. So it would be around, कितना है 20 ना, it is 20%. ठीक है, 20 होगा शायद, देख लो. ठीक है, no issues with this anybody. Secondary attack rate is calculated this. Then if I talk about this type of distribution, so if I am a patient or a child, vesicles are seen, okay, and these vesicles are more concentrated on the peripheries of the extremities. This is called as which distribution? Centrifugal distribution. This is called as centrifugal distribution, and centrifugal distribution is seen in smallpox. Centrifugal distribution is seen in smallpox. And smallpox is caused by which virus? Variola major. Smallpox is caused by which virus? Variola major. Then if the vesicles are concentrated in the trunk, it is centripetal. It is so CP for CP, that is centripetal rashes are seen in chickenpox. In chickenpox, we can see various vesicles, that is fluid-filled lesions are seen. These are known as vesicles. So multiple vesicles would be seen, but all of these would be in different stages. And this is known as pleomorphic lesion. These are known as pleomorphic rashes. So pleomorphic rashes are a feature of no issues with that. Then these rashes, as you can see, these are vesicular rashes, appears as a dew, ओस की बूंद की तरह दिख रहा है, और किस पे? गुलाब की पंखुड़ी पे. ठीक है, so these are the vesicular lesions on a erythematous base. Therefore they give which appearance? Dewdrop on rose petal appearance. Which appearance? Dewdrop on rose petal appearance. So dewdrop on rose petal appearance is a feature of incubation period of chickenpox. 10 to 21 days. 10 to 21 days. On an average it is 14 to 16 days. On an average it is 14 to 16 days. कल शायद वैक्सीन स्ट्रेन रह गया था. वैक्सीन स्ट्रेन ऑफ चिकनपॉक्स है. वैक्सीन स्ट्रेन ऑफ चिकनपॉक्स है. C से चौका. ठीक है. So चिकनपॉक्स का वैक्सीन स्ट्रेन है ओका. No issues with this anybody? Then moving further. कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. The most common age group affected is 5 to 9 years of age group. Most common age group affected is 5 to 9 years of age group. That is school going age. What is the secondary attack rate of chickenpox? Important. Maximum secondary attack rate is seen with chickenpox and measles, and it is more than 90%. Secondary attack rate of chickenpox is so it is highly communicable. Therefore, the best time or the period of communicability will end. The best answer would be till scab formation. If that is not an option, till crusting occurs. Till crusting of the lesion occurs. अगर वो भी नहीं है, then 2 days and 5 days वाला फंडा. No issues with this. Next, here you can see multiple small lesions on the patient, multiple erythematous rashes in a child between 3 months to 3 years of age group. Child between 3 months to 3 years, 6 months to 3 years of age group. 6 months to 3 years of age group. Why not till 6 months? Maternal antibodies are present. So this disease where there are multiple erythematous small rashes, this is measles. Incubation period is 10 to 14 days. Fever starts on 10th day. Rash appears on 14th day. Vaccine strain was, मैं ऐसे ही करूँगा, सब कुछ रिवाइज हो जाना चाहिए. Vaccine strain was Edmonstron Zagreb. No issues with this. And then the most pathognomic lesion, if they ask you. So the most pathognomic lesion of measles is whitish lesion in oral cavity, known as most pathognomic lesion of measles is Koplik spots. They are opposite to which teeth? Opposite to second lower molar. They are opposite to second lower molar. This was the question asked. Opposite to second lower molar. No issues with this. Now, which is the most common complication of measles? SST वाला सामने. It is serous otitis media. The most common complication of measles is serous otitis media. Most common complication of measles is serous otitis media. No issues with this. If I ask you a long-term and a rare side effect of measles, it is SSPE. Rare and a long-term side effect of measles is SSPE. Subacute sclerosing panencephalitis. Subacute sclerosing panencephalitis. So if they give you a history of some infection in childhood with fever and rashes, and now the child around 7 to 8 years comes to you with presence of altered sensorium seizures, then you will diagnose SSPE. ठीक है, ये क्वेश्चन आ चुका है. ठीक है, सेम similar question. No, बता रहा हूँ, उसी पे आ रहा है अपन. Then what is this? This is cheek swelling, and cheek swelling is actually due to parotitis. Cheek swelling is due to inflammation of your parotid gland. ठीक है, and this is seen in mumps. This is seen in mumps. Vaccine strain for mumps is Geraldine. Vaccine strain for mumps is Geraldine. Most common age group affected is 5 to 9 years. Most common age group affected is 5 to 9 years. That is your school going age children. ठीक है, and it is caused by the mumps virus, that is known as paramyxovirus parotitis. उसी का नाम ही है. ठीक है, myxovirus parotitis. It is caused by myxovirus parotitis. Paramyxovirus causes measles. Paramyxovirus causes measles. No issues with this? कोई दिक्कत आ रही है? Then mumps में most common complication would be aseptic meningitis. Most common complication of mumps is aseptic meningitis because it occurs in children. If they ask you specifically about adolescents, then most common complication in adolescents. Males it is. In females it is. Inflammation of testes or ovaries. ठीक है. So most common complication of mumps overall. Most common complication of mumps overall. Most common complication in children. Most common complication in children. But most common complication in adolescents, boys, female. No issues with this. अभी कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. I hope so. ठीक है. Incubation period 14 to 21 days, 2 to 3 weeks. No issues with this. Then this one, a mother was having rubella and it was transmitted to her fetus. Maximum time of transmission is, highest risk of transmission is during first trimester. And the child is having now congenital rubella syndrome. The child is having congenital rubella syndrome. And congenital rubella syndrome is characterized by a classical triad known as CHD. CCD याद रख सकते हो, CHD, whatever you call it. ठीक है. C goes for cataract. C goes for cataract. H goes for congenital heart defects. H goes for congenital heart defects. And D goes for deafness. That is sensory neural hearing loss. D goes for deafness. Which type? Sensory neural hearing loss. Okay. So which is the most common congenital heart disease? Most common congenital heart disease in congenital rubella syndrome is. Most common congenital heart disease in congenital rubella syndrome is. And these type of rashes would be seen in the child. These rashes are called as blueberry muffin rash. So blueberry muffin rash is seen in which syndrome? Blueberry muffin rash is seen in which syndrome? Congenital rubella syndrome. Triad is CHD. C for H for heart disease. D for deafness. Most common heart disease PDA. Incubation period of rubella 14 to 21 days. 14 to 21 days or 2 to 3 weeks. Vaccine strain of rubella RA27/3. Vaccine strain of rubella RA27/3. No issues with this. Shabash. Which influenza type is the most common cause of epidemic now? Type A and type B होता है. Influenza के type A and type B होते हैं. Most common cause of epidemic is type. Most common cause of epidemic is type. Most common cause of epidemic is type. So type A can cause epidemic as well as pandemic. But pandemics are more commonly caused by type B. It is more commonly caused by type B influenza. No issues with this. Now, as we know, influenza cases show maximum variation because influenza shows maximum antigenic variation. It shows maximum antigenic variation. Either it is antigenic drift, it is antigenic drift, or antigenic shift. So antigenic drift is due to point mutation. Antigenic drift is due to antigenic drift is due to antigenic shift is due to genetic reassortment. Antigenic shift is due to genetic reassortment. Antigenic shift is due to, this was a question which has been asked, इसलिए पढ़ा रहा. So which organism shows maximum antigenic variation? Influenza. Okay, and mainly it is type A. ठीक है. Antigenic drift is due to point mutation. Antigenic shift is due to genetic reassortment. कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. Drug of choice for influenza बताओ जल्दी. Drug of choice is oseltamivir. Drug of choice is oseltamivir. What is the dose? For treatment it is 75 mg BD for 5 days. For treatment it is 75 mg BD for 5 days. For prophylaxis it is 75 mg OD for 5 days. 75 mg OD for 3 to 5 days. ठीक है. No issues with this. याद रख लो, ये क्वेश्चन आ चुका है. इन्फेंट्स का पूछा था उन्होंने तो डोज FMG में. ठीक है. 3 mg per kg याद रख लो. For infants the dose of oseltamivir is 3 mg per kilogram per day. No issues with this. 3 mg per kilogram per day. Source for diphtheria. So for all infections usually the source would be cases. The source would be cases. The infected population can transmit the disease, right? But for diphtheria and one more, the source is actually a carrier. The source are more commonly a carrier. Source are more commonly a carrier. So important source for diphtheria transmission are important source for diphtheria transmission are, and the other disease is meningococcal meningitis. So two diseases where cases are not the source, rather it is the carriers which are the source. Okay, and that is diphtheria and meningococcal meningitis. Diphtheria and meningococcal meningitis are. No issues with this. If I talk about diphtheria, favorite question, सरकारी question, हर बार का question है, last 4 बार से. ठीक है. So diphtheria on Albert stain will show which pattern? Albert stain will show which pattern? Chinese letter pattern, also known as which arrangement? Also known as which arrangement? क्या? Also known as uniform arrangement. Also known as uniform arrangement. So on which stain diphtheria shows Chinese letter pattern? Albert stain. Okay. It is also known as which arrangement? Pattern is Chinese letter. Arrangement is. Then diphtheria patient. The route of transmission is. Route of transmission is. Route of transmission. ठीक oral होता है. शाबाश. Shabash. It is respiratory. That is air droplets. COVID is also. COVID is also aerosol route भी बोल सकते हैं, air droplets भी बोल सकते हैं, respiratory भी बोल सकते हैं, inhalation भी बोल सकते हैं. Any of this mark it as the same one. Okay. So measles also respiratory, mumps also respiratory, rubella also respiratory, diphtheria also respiratory, meningococcal meningitis also respiratory. ठीक है. So in diphtheria if the person is infected, incubation period was. Diphtheria incubation period was 2 to 6 days. Incubation period was 2 to 6 days. Here the patient will have bilateral cervical lymphadenopathy. Bilateral cervical lymphadenopathy which causes diffuse neck swelling. And this image came in December and June. Sorry. This is known as bull's neck. Bilateral cervical lymphadenopathy in diphtheria is known as bilateral cervical lymphadenopathy in diphtheria is known as bull's neck. And here we will find this a whitish membrane in the oropharynx. This is known as pseudo membrane. How to differentiate it? So please remember, it will extend from the tonsils till the palate. It will extend from the tonsils till the palate. And second, it will bleed on removal. It will bleed on removal. Okay, that is a characteristic feature of diphtheria pseudomembrane. No issues with this. Diphtheria is communicable for a time 14 to 28 days from the onset. Diphtheria is communicable for 14 to 28 days from the onset. घर पे जाके भी रिवाइज करोगे तो इसी तरह से हर डिसीज में वापस वो चीजें आ जानी चाहिए, तब जाके रिवाइज होंगी, तब जाके याद होंगी चीजें, ऐसे नहीं याद होंगी. ठीक है. Please remember this. No problems with diphtheria. Diphtheria is important. Then a child presented with complaints of fever, diffuse rash, altered sensorium, and history of seizures. So fever, headache, and neck stiffness is usually suggestive of meningitis. Along with that, Along with that, they have given altered sensorium and seizure. That means it is meningoencephalitis. Brain is also involved. Meningoencephalitis. मैंने बताया था medicine में, ठीक है? So here they have given the gram stain. So the rash is appearing something like this. It is a purpuric rash. Which kind of a rash is seen? Purpuric rash with fever, with meningitis features, and gram stain showing diplococci. Gram stain showing diplococci. It is suggestive of which organism? Neisseria meningitidis. It is suggestive of which organism? Neisseria meningitidis, also known as meningococcus. Also known as meningococcus. ठीक है? ये इमेज आ चुकी है लाल वाली जो माइक्रो में. डिप्लोकोकाई रेड कलर की इमेज आती है. ठीक है? तो स्टेन में ग्राम नेगेटिव होता है. ठीक है? तो नेइसेरिया मेनिंजाइटिस. ठीक है? ये और गोनोकॉकस दोनों. Drug of choice would be. So for treatment, I am asking. For treatment or diagnosed case, ये तो diagnosed case हो गई. For treatment of a diagnosed case, the treatment is, or the drug of choice would be, it is penicillin. The drug of choice for treatment is, drug of choice for empirical treatment. That means you do not have the diagnosis still. You need to give a broad spectrum antibiotic. For that, the drug of choice would be. So what treatment it is? Penicillin. Empirical therapy मतलब suspected. We have not confirmed the diagnosis yet. ठीक है? And what is the drug of choice for chemoprophylaxis? Drug of choice for chemoprophylaxis is, see, chemoprophylaxis is to be given for a whole large population. Mass chemoprophylaxis is given. Therefore, the drug should not be an injectable, it should be a oral drug. Rifampicin was given earlier, but nowadays better drug is available, and that is ciprofloxacin. So the drug of choice for chemoprophylaxis is, oral drug. But as we know, ciprofloxacin is contraindicated in pregnancy and children. Therefore, in pregnancy and children, the drug of choice for chemoprophylaxis would be, here we can give injectables because it would be a limited population. So drug of choice for chemoprophylaxis in children and pregnancy would be, it is ceftriaxone. I am देंगे. IV is only given for treatment. ठीक है? इतना डोज नहीं देना, तो मैं ceftriaxone देंगे. ठीक है? No issues with this. याद रख लो. So what treatment it is? Penicillin. Empirical therapy it is ceftriaxone. Drug of choice for chemoprophylaxis, ciprofloxacin. Drug of choice for chemoprophylaxis in children and pregnancy, ceftriaxone. Meningococcal meningitis का recent एक exam में vaccine आई थी. So the vaccine of meningococcal meningitis contains which subtype? Vaccine contains which subtype? जो नहीं है वो ही बताया तुमने. Exact. It contains A, C, Y, W135. It contains which strains of meningococcus? A, C, Y, and W135. B is not a part of the meningococcal vaccine. याद रखना यही question था. Then, what is the frequency of paralytic polio? That means how many how much percent of cases of polio will show paralysis? What is the frequency of paralytic polio? It is less than 1%. Okay, less than 1% of polio shows paralysis. तो ये मत बैठा लेना कि polio मतलब paralysis. ठीक है? ये fix नहीं है. Mostly 95% of the cases of polio are usually catarrhal, prodromal होता है. कोई ज़्यादा symptoms नहीं होंगे. ठीक है? So paralytic polio are only less than 1%. Important. Which strain of polio causes vaccine-associated paralytic polio? Which strain of polio causes vaccine-associated paralytic polio? It is P3. Vaccine-associated paralytic polio is vaccine-associated paralytic polio is, and vaccine-derived polio virus is P2 has been eradicated. It is known as the wild strain of polio. जल्दी से polio का live strain साधन. polio का live strain है, polio का kill strain है, OPV contains P1 and P3. OPV contains P1 and P3, and it contains the live strain, that is Sabin. Sal के scene है IPV. साल के सीन है IPV. No issues with this. Anybody now? कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. आगे बढ़ते हैं. And for polio, usually with surveillance is done. Acute flaccid paralysis surveillance is done. Acute flaccid paralysis surveillance is done. It is done by whom? Active surveillance होता है. The medical officer goes to house visit, and he is known as the surveillance medical officer. And acute flaccid paralysis is done for children less than 5 years, because OPV मतलब sorry पोलियो की रिस्क हाईएस्ट कब तक होती है? 5 years तक. पोलियो में पैरालिसिस कैसे होता है? Descending or ascending? Descending. Flaccid or spastic? Flaccid. Important to differentiate. What is this? What is this image? Shabash. It is rice watery diarrhea. So what is this? Rice watery stools or rice watery diarrhea. अच्छा हुआ कोई इसने और कुछ नहीं. ठीक है. So this is the rice watery diarrhea or rice watery stool seen in incubation period of cholera is 22 days. Incubation period of cholera is and there would be explosive rice watery diarrhea in the patient. Which variety of cholera is more common? Previously, ये change है इससे बता रहा हूँ. Previously, it was the Eltor variety which was common. Now it is the hybrid variety which is common. Now which variety is common of cholera? Now which variety is common of cholera? And which motility is seen on hanging drop test? Hanging drop test we करते, we see a darting motility. We see a darting motility, and cholera is caused by वही रह गया. Cholera is caused by Vibrio cholerae. Cholera is caused by Vibrio cholerae. No issues with this. Done. Then if I talk about this one, ये क्या है? सूप मत बोल देना बस. This is a कैसा दिख रहा है? डायरिया है ना, ये तो कोमोड है. इतना तो पता लग गया. It is pea soup diarrhea. It is known as pea soup diarrhea. So pea soup stools or pea soup diarrhea is a feature of typhoid or enteric fever. So it is a feature of typhoid or enteric fever. Important. In typhoid or enteric fever, incubation period was 10 to 14 days. Incubation period was which type of diarrhea is seen? And on trunk, these type of small spots are seen. These are known as rose spots. And the fever seen in typhoid is known as step ladder pyrexia or step ladder fever. So which type of fever is seen in typhoid? Step ladder fever. Important. Which type of ulcers in GIT are seen in typhoid? Longitudinal ulcers in typhoid. Longitudinal ulcers in ट्रांसवर्स अल्सर से टीबी. ट्रांसवर्स अल्सर से कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, याद रखो. ड्रग ऑफ चॉइस फॉर टाइफॉइड इज सेफ्ट्राइजोन. नहीं देते हैं, सिर्फ ओरल देंगे ना, इंजेक्टेबल. सो इट इज सेफालोस्पोरिन. ड्रग ऑफ चॉइस फॉर टाइफॉइड आर cephalosporin. Cefixime दिया जाता है orally usually to the patient. No issues with this. Other drugs can also be given, but the preferred one are cephalosporins. If I talk about cholera, the drug of choice would be वो तो करेंगे. The drug of choice would be doxycycline. And for prophylaxis, the drug of choice would be tetracycline. Prophylaxis के लिए drug of choice, typhoid के लिए drug of choice cephalosporins. No issues with this. Then in both these conditions, explosive diarrhea होता है. भर के patient वही पड़ा रहता है. ठीक है. Therefore you need to give fluids to the patient. Okay. Oral rehydration solution. So this is the packet of ORS. अगर जिसने नहीं पिया हो बचपन में. So this ORS is given by WHO. And now we have the reduced osmolarity ORS. आजकल हम कौन सा ORS यूज करते हैं? Reduced osmolarity ORS. And this reduced osmolarity ORS has a osmolarity of 245 milliosmoles per liter. So the reduced osmolarity ORS has a osmolarity of 245 milliosmoles per liter. So now sodium content in reduced osmolarity ORS is sodium content is glucose content is potassium content is and why is glucose given? To increase the sodium absorption, because they are absorbed by the same transporter known as SGLT2. Then Risomal, that is rehydration solution for malnourished. ठीक है. So here the composition is somewhat different. Here sodium would be It would be 45. Here the sodium would be, here the sodium would be, glucose would be malnourished है ना, so ज़्यादा glucose. So here the glucose would be 125. Glucose would be 125, and potassium is doubled. So this was asked. Potassium is doubled. It is 40. Potassium is doubled. It is 40. No issues with this. Risomal में it is usually given for malnourished children. Then please tell me which is the most common worm infestation. The most common worm infestation is Ascariasis. Very good. Most common worm infestation is Ascariasis, also known as roundworm. Ascariasis is also known as hookworm. मतलब Ankylostoma duodenale. Hookworm is Ankylostoma duodenale. Important features with hookworm infestation or ankylostomiasis is there would be blood loss. And that can cause iron deficiency anemia. So iron deficiency anemia is seen with which worm infection? Ankylostoma. Iron deficiency anemia is seen with megaloblastic anemia with which helminth or infection? Megaloblastic anemia. जल्दी एक बंदा megaloblastic anemia is associated with chocolate मैं खा लूंगा. It is associated with Diphyllobothrium latum. Also known as fish tapeworm. No issues with this. Hookworm infestation becomes a public health problem if the index is, which is the index used for assessing the social health status of ankylostomiasis. It is known as the Chandler's index. And what value of Chandler's index is a major social public health problem? More than 300. So if Chandler's index is more than 300, it would be a major public health problem. No issues with this. So for hookworm infestation, which is the index used? And when it becomes a major public health problem? More than 300. Then what is the drug of choice for cystic sarcosis? Albendazole. A cystic sarcosis is caused by Tinea solium or Tinea saginata. Mainly by Tinea solium. So, definitive host for Tinea solium and Tinea saginata are definitive host are man. Definitive host for Tinea solium and Tinea saginata are intermediate host for Tinea solium है के लिए boar, Tinea solium के लिए pig, Tinea solium के लिए Tinea saginata के लिए cattle, Tinea saginata के लिए saginata बड़ा नाम, cattle बड़ा नाम, सोलियम छोटा नाम, pork छोटा नाम. मैंने 10 से याद रखा. ठीक है. So usually it would be due to सोलियम छोटा नाम, so pig, saginata बड़ा नाम, so cattle. ठीक है. Important. The drug of choice for teniasis is usually praziquantel. The drug of choice for teniasis is praziquantel. But when there is cystic sarcosis, the drug of choice changes to albendazole. Teniasis में praziquantel. Teniasis में cystic sarcosis में Stars का appearance on NCCC. National Deworming Day is observed on. ये question था. 10th February and 10th August. 10th February and 10th of August every year. So twice in a year it is observed. National Deworming Day. And National Deworming Day, definitely we give iron and folic acid supplementation. But along with that, for deworming we give which drug? We give albendazole. How much mg? 400 mg. How much mg? 400 mg. No issues with this. This is the National Deworming Day observed in schools of India. Next, if I see, this was the image which was asked. कौन था वो जिसने, हाँ ठीक है वो है, मैंने lymphatic filariasis डाला है, but देखते lymphatic बोलने वाला कौन था? पता है तुम्हें Bruggen है lymphatic है? So if there is scrotal swelling or swelling of the leg, that is elephantiasis. Okay, there is elephantiasis. It is a case of filariasis. It is a case of filariasis. Filariasis can be lymphatic filariasis. It can be either lymphatic filariasis or Bruggian filariasis. It can be either lymphatic or Bruggian or lymphatic filariasis is also called as Bancroftian filariasis. Lymphatic filariasis is also called as Bancroftian filariasis. This gives you the name. Lymphatic filariasis is caused by Buscherichia bancrofti. Lymphatic filariasis is caused by Buscherichia bancrofti. Whereas Bruggian filariasis is caused by Brugia malai. Bruggian filariasis is caused by Brugia malai. In both of this, there would be scrotal swelling, neck swelling, all of these would be present. Definitely, elephantiasis is more likely a feature of Bancroftian or lymphatic filariasis. No issues with this. Then, for diagnosis, usually, we will see the presence of microfilaria. For diagnosis, we will assess the presence of microfilaria. Question: microfilaria is present in all the bodily secretions except. Question था ये. Microfilaria is present in all the bodily secretions except. या B का result. Saliva. It is not present in saliva. Very good. It is not present in saliva. Don't make a mistake. This was a recent question. ठीक है? Microfilaria are not found in saliva. Blood, serum, urine, हर जगह पे it would be present. Sweat पे भी. How to differentiate? Organism looks similar. Micro में, right? Terminal tip. Sorry. Tail tip पे 2 terminal nuclei suggest your Brugia malai. Terminal tail पे 2 terminal nuclei suggest your no nuclei suggest your so microfilaria looks same if there are 2 terminal nuclei Brugia malai. No terminal nuclei Buscherichia bancrofti. No issues with this. The drug of choice for filariasis is anybody? Diethyl carbamazine. Drug of choice for filariasis is diethyl carbamazine. ठीक है? Now we use triple therapy in, right? Along with that we give oral drug known as ivermectin. Along with that we give a albendazole. Along with that we give a so the triple therapy used for filariasis. First is DEC, second is ivermectin, and third is albendazole. Drug of choice is sorry. Typhoid के लिए 4 हफ्तों for 4 weeks you have Basu. First week it is blood culture. Second week it is antibody test or agglutination test known as Vidal test. Third week it is stool culture. And fourth week it is urine culture. Best overall is blood culture. ठीक है? Then most important indicator for malaria control. Anybody? Most important indicator for malaria control. So the previously those were used were the spleen rate, infant parasite rate. Now the best indicator is annual parasitic incidence. The best indicator for malaria control is annual parasitic incidence. The best indicator is annual parasitic incidence. No issues with this. याद रखना. And the best indicator for operational efficiency. The best indicator for operational efficiency, that means the malaria control program is working good or not. It is annual blood examination rate. It is annual blood examination rate. ठीक है? Peripheral blood smears of malaria are collected at which center? So they are collected from homes and brought to which center? Sub center. They are brought to sub center. They are prepared by MPW male. Prepared by MPW and sent for examination at PSC. Sent for examination at, and the stain used is JSB. The stain used for malaria slides is Jaswant Singh Bhattacharya. Jaswant Singh Bhattacharya stain. Apart from peripheral blood smear for malaria, we also have, guys, also have a rapid diagnostic test of malaria. This was a question. The protein which is used for detection on rapid diagnostic test is known as histidine rich protein of Plasmodium falciparum. Histidine rich protein of Plasmodium falciparum. It is used for rapid diagnostic test of malaria. Questions are direct one line. ठीक है? Which protein is used for diagnosis of malaria by the rapid diagnostic test? It is HRP, histidine rich protein of Plasmodium falciparum. Then the cause for malaria is यही सीरियस नहीं है अभी पूछा. The cause for malaria is Plasmodium. Cause for malaria is Plasmodium. Vector for malaria is Anopheles. Vector for malaria is female Anopheles. Vector for malaria is female Anopheles mosquito. In rural India, it is Anopheles QDC face sheath. In rural India, it is Anopheles. In rural India, it is Anopheles. In rural India, it is Anopheles. In urban India, urban name hai. It is Anopheles Stephensii. In urban India, it is Anopheles. In urban India, it is Anopheles. Anopheles is called as a dirty mosquito, sophisticated mosquito. So it is called as a sophisticated mosquito because it breeds in clean water. It breeds in clean water. How to recognize Anopheles? So here it sits on the skin surface with an angle of. It sits on the skin surface with an angle of, and the wings periphery will show black spots. Wings periphery will show. Wings periphery will show. And the larva of malaria usually is parallel to the water surface. Larva of malaria is parallel to the water surface. Important. Now, which is the biological anti-larval measure? ये exact मैं question की तुम्हें language दे रहा हूँ. Very good. It is the Gambusia fish. So the biological anti-larval measure which is used is known as Gambusia fish. So these Gambusia fish will eat the larvae of the mosquito. ठीक है? For adult mosquito, we can spray some chemical agents like DDT, pyrethrum, or malathion. Question from August: malathion is spread every. Malathion is spread every. If you are a medical officer, malathion is spread every 3 months. Important. This was the question in August. Okay, no issues with this. Others are DDT, pyrethrum. DDT, pyrethrum 3 months में कर देते हैं. DDT, pyrethrum, and malathion. Sorry. These are which kind of poison? Nerve poison or contact poison. These are which type of poison? Nerve poison or contact poison. Important, they have asked you which is the stomach poison. Shabash, it is Paris green. So stomach poison for mosquito is? Stomach poison for mosquito is? Paris green. Stomach poison for mosquito is? Stomach poison for mosquito is? No issues with this? Yaad rakhna. Then for mosquito net is important. Okay? So mosquito net is which level of prevention? Anybody? It is primary level specific protection. DDT is again primary level specific protection because the risk factor in mosquito is present. Number of holes per square inch should be. Number of holes per square inch should be more than 150. Number of holes per square inch should be more than 150. Number of holes per square inch should be more than 150. Diameter of one hole should be 0.0475 inches. Diameter of one hole should be 0.0475 inches. All of these are one-liners which came from malaria. ठीक है, मैं और extra कुछ नहीं बता रहा तुम्हें. Next, this mosquito which you can see, this is known as Aedes aegypti. This is known as Aedes aegypti. Aedes aegypti, due to this white spot on the body, is also known as Aedes aegypti is also known as. And tiger mosquito or Aedes aegypti breeds in which kind of water? It breeds usually in artificially collected water. It stores in artificially collected water. And therefore केजरीवाल क्या बोलता है? पानी जमा ना होने पे. And the larva of Aedes aegypti is perpendicular to the water surface or suspended from the water surface. ठीक है? No issues with this. And it also has a siphon tube. ठीक है? No issues with this. Aedes aegypti is a vector for dengue. Aedes aegypti is a vector for. It is also a vector for yellow fever. It is also a vector for. It is also a vector for Zika virus, and it is also a vector for chikungunya fever. So Aedes aegypti is a vector for 4 diseases. First is, second is, third is, and fourth is. No issues with this. Please remember this. Okay, important. Next mosquito is this one. What is this mosquito? So this mosquito having sparkling legs. Mosquito having sparkling legs is known as which mosquito? This is known as the Culex mosquito. This is known as the Culex mosquito. Okay, and Culex mosquito is known as dirty mosquito. Culex mosquito is known as dirty mosquito because it breeds in dirty water. No issues with this. याद रखना. Culex is a vector for Japanese encephalitis. Culex is a vector for Japanese encephalitis and also for it is also the vector for leishmaniasis. Leishmaniasis के लिए नहीं है, काला आजार के लिए it is sandfly fever. Sorry, sandfly. ठीक है, leishmaniasis के लिए नहीं है. It is the vector for filariasis. It is the vector for filariasis. Please tell me the most common Culex responsible for Japanese encephalitis transmission. Culex tritanio-rhynchus. The most common vector responsible for Japanese encephalitis is Culex tritanio-rhynchus, followed by Culex vishnui. रट के मत बैठो विष्णु, ठीक है? So the most common vector responsible is Culex tritanio-rhynchus for JE. The vector responsible for filariasis is Culex. एक दो ही नाम पता है हमें, Culex tritanio-rhynchus. ये मैं शॉर्ट में लिख रहा हूँ. For filariasis it is Culex Quincke fasciatus. It is Quincke fasciatus. For filariasis it is Culex Quincke fasciatus. No issues with this now. Then this black colored mosquito is known as, so Culex में एक important है. What is this? This is known as the hunchback appearance. What is this appearance known as? Hunchback appearance. What is this appearance known as? Hunchback appearance. ठीक है? And a black color mosquito with sparkling of legs. Sparkling दोनों में दिखती है, but a more characteristic black color mosquito with sparkling of legs is a feature of Mansonia. It is a feature of Mansonia mosquito. And Mansonia mosquito में the larvae are suspended from aquatic rootlets. Okay, the larvae are suspended from aquatic rootlets. If they give you such kind of larvae which are suspending from aquatic plants, then it is definitely Mansonia. ठीक है? No issues with this. And Mansonia is the vector for Bruggian filariasis. Mansonia is a vector for Bruggian filariasis. No issues with this. Government of India has launched a program known as National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program. राष्ट्रीय वेक्टर जनित रोग नियंत्रण कार्यक्रम. ठीक है? NVBDCP. And according to this, we are यहाँ मच्छर दिख रहा है ना, सुई थी. ठीक है? So according to this, definitely we are trying to prevent and control the cases of malaria, dengue, Japanese encephalitis. Okay, all these vector-borne diseases. Most common vector-borne disease in India is malaria. Most common vector-borne disease in India is malaria. Most common viral vector-borne disease in India is dengue. Most common viral vector-borne disease in India is dengue. Most common arboviral vector-borne disease in India is dengue again. This is the life cycle. ये image आई थी. This is the life cycle for Shabash. It is Japanese encephalitis. This is the life cycle for Japanese, because the amplifier host is pig. Okay, important. Whereas the definitive host man is an accidental host, guys. ठीक है? Definitive hosts are RD'd birds. Definitive hosts are RD'd birds like pigeons, fowls. Okay, all of that. So definitive host is RD'd birds. Definitive hosts are RD'd birds. No issues with this. So such kind of a picture is suggested of Japanese encephalitis, and the vector responsible is Culex tritanio-rhynchus. Culex tritanio-rhynchus. No issues with this. याद रखना. Culex Quincke fasciatus is the vector for lymphatic filariasis. Culex Quincke fasciatus is the vector for lymphatic filariasis. And Mansonia is the vector for Bruggian filariasis. ठीक है? Next, this is the life cycle for where there are rats and the farmer was working, and due to contact with rodent urine, the person got infection. This is the image. नीट पीजी में भी आई है, recently तुम्हारे इसमें भी आ सकती है. It is leptospirosis. It is leptospirosis. No issues with this, anybody? So at least life cycle देख लो एक बार. ठीक है? rodent urine के साथ. Bad contaminated fruits के साथ एक क्वेश्चन था. Bad contaminated fruits, Nipah virus. Bad contaminated fruits, Nipah virus. Bad contaminated fruits, Nipah virus. And Ebola is due to contact with secretion. Ebola is due to contact with secretion. Next, here you can see this is what? Louse. This is louse, head louse, body louse, or crab louse. So louse is the vector for jaldi. Louse is the vector for which rickettsial disease? Louse is the vector for Also the vector for French fever. Also the vector for French fever. Also the vector for relapsing fever. And also the vector for pediculosis. Also the vector for pediculosis. No issues with this. Pediculosis can be either pediculosis capitis caused by head louse, pediculosis corporis caused by body louse, and pediculosis pubis caused by crab louse. Important. Okay? So it is a water-borne disease due to less hygiene. Okay? Scabies and pediculosis. No issues with this. Important. So next one. This one is a soft tick, and soft tick is a vector for KFD in India or outside India? KFD outside India. KFD outside India. It is also the vector for relapsing fever. It is also the vector for relapsing fever, and also the vector for but for Q fever in humans there is no vector. Q fever in humans, no vector. It spreads by inhalational route. It spreads by inhalational route or by intake of contaminated milk So Q fever के लिए soft tick is the vector in cattle. Soft tick is the vector in cattle. Hard tick, it is a vector for KFD in. Then next, it is also the vector for Indian tick typhus. It is also the vector for Indian tick typhus. It is also the vector for tick encephalitis. It is also the vector for tick encephalitis. It is also the vector for tick hemorrhagic fever. Okay, important नहीं है. Last important.
Except French fever, all T.
All TTs, हाँ ठीक है ऐसे याद रख लो. Tick hemorrhagic fever, trench sorry. It is usually Indian tick typhus. Okay, an important one, tularemia also. Okay, important one is tularemia. ठीक है for all of these. And lastly for Rocky Mountain spotted fever. For Rocky Mountain spotted fever. ठीक है. So hard tick is the vector for KFD Indian tick typhus. Then tick encephalitis. Tick hemorrhagic fever, tularemia, and Rocky Mountain spotted fever. No issues with this. Next one. This one is a sandfly. This one is a sandfly. Which species? Phlebotomous species. Which species? And sandfly is a vector for? Sandfly is a vector for? Leishmaniasis. Sandfly is a vector for? Why not to remember Kala Azar only? I'll tell you. Leishmaniasis, because visceral leishmaniasis is called as Kala Azar. Visceral leishmaniasis is called as cutaneous leishmaniasis is called as Oriental sore, Delhi boil or Baghdad boil. Okay. Cutaneous leishmaniasis is called as Oriental sore, cutaneous boil or Baghdad boil because it is more common in tropical countries like India and Iran. ठीक है. And mucocutaneous leishmaniasis होता है. ठीक है. So vector for all of them is sandfly. Which species? Phlebotomous species. Causative agent of Kala Azar. जल्दी बोलो. Leishmania. दोनों वानी. Leishmania. Oriental sore, Delhi boil or Baghdad boil. Leishmania. Tropical countries. So Leishmania for mucocutaneous. Leishmania Braziliensis. For mucocutaneous. Leishmania. No issues with this. Drug of choice for Kala Azar. Liposomal amphotericin B along with 5-flucytosine. No issues with this. And if inadequate treatment is given to a patient of Kala Azar, after 1 to 2 years, there would be again recrudescence. This is known as post-Kala Azar dermal leishmaniasis. Okay, no issues with this. Next one, this black colored bug is known as, this is a red-ovate bug. And red-ovate bug is a vector for Chagas disease. Red-ovate bug is a vector for Chagas disease. Chagas disease is also known as American trypanosomiasis. Chagas disease is also known as American trypanosomiasis. Also called as American sleeping sickness. Then if you can tell me what is the vector for African sleeping sickness? Very good. It is the sese fly. And sese fly is which species? Glossina species. Which species of sese fly? Glossina species. Which species of sese fly? Glossina species. Then the last one you can see, it is a rat flea. And rat flea is a vector for Endemic typhus. It is a vector for endemic typhus. It is also the vector for plague. It is also the vector for plague. Plague important. Reservoir are rodents. Vector is rat flea. In humans, plague is by person to person transmission. In rodents, usually it is by the rat flea. And the third one is chiggerosis. Third one is chiggerosis. Okay? So rat flea will transmit first. Endemic typhus, second plague, third chiggerosis. Now जल्दी से मैं बस short time ले रहा हूँ. Rickettsial infections important है इसलिए एक sequence बता रहा हूँ उसमें बस याद रखना, ठीक है? So the sequence you need to remember. First of all, first should be epidemic typhus. First should be epidemic. And here तो लिख लो जल्दी short. EPT करके, ठीक है? First is epidemic typhus. Second is trench fever. Second is trench fever. Then next would be scrub typhus. Next would be scrub typhus. ठीक है? No issues with this. Next would be Indian tick typhus. Next would be Indian tick typhus. Next would be Rocky Mountain spotted fever. Next would be Rocky Mountain spotted fever. Next would be endemic typhus. Next would be endemic typhus. So all बता दिया ना? No issues with this. समझ गए क्या? तो अभी कैसे याद रखना है? First two louse. First two का वेक्टर है louse. Second it is scrub typhus ना mite. Second it is trombiculate mite. Second it is trombiculate mite. Next one it is tick. Next one it is tick. And last one it is rat flea. ठीक है? Mite के लिए और एक ऐड कर सकता था, but it's important. ठीक है? Now positive agents लिख लो जल्दी से. For epidemic typhus it is rickettsia provazatic. P आता है epidemic में, provazatic का P. ठीक है? तो epidemic typhus is rickettsia provazatic. Then comes trench fever. It is Bartonella quintana. Bartonella hensley is a causative agent of cat scratch disease. Bartonella quintana for trench fever. Next is scrub typhus. Japanese name Orencia susugamushi. ठीक है? Next one it is Indian tick typhus. Rickettsia conuri. No issues with this. Next is Rocky Mountain spotted fever. Rickettsy. Okay. Next one. क्या बता? Endemic typhus. It is Rickettsia typhi. Drug of choice important. Drug of choice for rickettsial infection. Important है. Doxycycline. Drug of choice for rickettsial infections is doxycycline. One more rickettsial infection is Q fever. What is the causative agent of Q fever? Coxiella burnetii. Causative agent of Q fever is Coxiella burnetii. But it has no vector in humans. In animals it is soft tick. ठीक है? Thank you so much guys.